Okay, so I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:04. Can I get someone to make, anyone who decides to talk has to talk really loud over top of the fans so that they can hear us online and maybe so we can hear each other. So I just want to say that first. I have no problem with that, but other people might. So can I get someone to make a motion to accept the agenda, please?
I move for a second.
Okay, Fernanda and Barbara. All in favor of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, those opposed? We've got an agenda. All right, communications with parents, citizens, and staff. Hi. And hello. Is there anybody that would like to speak to us? We probably will not have community voice during our actual conversations of each bullet point, but if there's something that you'd like the board to know now is the time to do that.
Looks like there's a hand up.
I have questions. Kelly
Sure.
Rasmussen would like to talk about the budget proposal that was issued.
There has been no budget proposal yet.
Or the draft that was shared out.
Okay?
So, concerns I have are, as taxpayer, it seems like there's missing transparency here. So, in the effect that there's a lot at the central office that's not transparent in how the taxpayers are paying that versus grants, and then how our OVUU budget factors into that as well. And so where can other cuts be made that are not a direct impact to our students, our educators, our extracurriculars, the things that enrich our students' lives?
Sure.
So I have a lot of concerns about that. And it's also unclear when these proposals come out, the true impact to the taxpayers. So one instance is the town of Brandon just voted again tonight on our budget yet again.
Yep.
It was very clear how much it was going to impact month by month for what was being proposed on the tax bill. So overall, this is what your annual tax increase will look like. That is not clear from any of this information that I've received. And I don't think it's easy to consume some of this information across all parents and communities. And I didn't even know this was available until doing some digging. So that's one area that I would like to propose to this group.
Can I have your name again?
Kelly Rasmussen.
The only thing I will say is that the town, it's much easier for them to tell you what your tax rate is because they don't have to worry about common levels of appraisal. You've probably heard that term a million times. I'm going to hate that term at some point. But we do try to let you know what your tax rate is going to be. I think we did that. I thought we did that fairly well at the last one. But if the information isn't being disseminated correct, if you're not getting that information, then
I don't think it's clearly communicated for everyone to have easy access to.
okay. All right. All right. Anyone else? Anyone online? There's a question. Is there a
They
question?
just can't hear.
Oh, okay. Well,
Looks like, is that a
what I can
hand?
do about that. So the only thing I can do is, can you hear me?
Yes, I think you're the only one they can hear.
All right. So Kelly's question is that she's not sure that, she doesn't know how our budget proposal affects your tax rate and on your tax bill. Essentially, that's what you're asking, correct?
That's
and
one aspect.
One thing. And the other part of it is that she's very concerned about cutting anything that is going to touch kids.
Students, yes. Our class sizes are very large as they are, and it is very hard at this age group at the elementary school, and seeing that class size could increase again for some grade levels or classes combining again. Thinking about Lothrop, they're looking to take the 2 third-grade classes, combine them for a 4th-grade class, and that's a large class size, and they already have problem students. I can't even imagine how that's going to impact those students there.
Okay. All right. Anyone online want to talk to us?
I I do want to make sure it was clear that there is a lack of transparency around the number of positions at central office, how those salaries are split out based on taxpayer funds versus grant funds as well, and can reductions be made there versus direct impacts to our students?
So RNESU, that's the RNESU budget at central office. We've already met and made our decisions as to what will be cut from that budget that will affect the OVU budget.
Is that only this CO will not have substitutes, CO facility repairs will be deferred? Are those the only two items?
No, they also cut, or actually they got rid of the home, you got rid of a Rutland mental health clinician and replaced it with our home-based school coordinator to a savings of $99,000. And they also cut a position in the tech department, and instead of getting that tech department, they will be using the interns that they've used in the past from Castleton to a savings of another $57,000.
I think there's more opportunities available.
Can I respond?
Sure.
So a couple of things. One, just to know, it isn't that it lacks transparency. This isn't a budget proposal, right? So the last OV board meeting, we were tasked with basically showing everything that wasn't nailed down to the ground. So no one is proposing any of the reductions that you see on this list. This is what we say we can feasibly reduce at this point because contracts have been issued, right? No one's saying we want to cut a teacher at Neshobe. No one's saying we want to cut a teacher at Lothrop. Trust me, the last budget we had, we already made some reductions that schools and kids and teachers are going to feel, right? Like, so no part of this budget feels good. So just definitely hear that this is not the proposal. So that's sort of why it doesn't feel transparent, because that's not what we're selling, right? So that we can't really tell you what the impact will be on your tax rate because we don't know what the board is going to come up with. So that's one. The second thing just to know about is, yeah, generally the RNESU, the supervisory union, feels a little, not transparent, but a little disconnected because the RNESU board, the supervisory union, really only exists to provide services to OVU and the Barstow School District. So it's just a board of 5. You don't usually see parents show up to those meetings because it sort of is this different sort of thing. This last round, which was last week, 2 weeks ago, RNESU reduced an additional $176,000. The previous time the board went, or the RNESU budget, or the budget was defeated at Otter Valley and Barstow, RNESU also reduced over $150,000, $180,000. So although RNESU doesn't have to open because theirs isn't really voted on the way that Otter Valley Union and Barstow is voted on, when our budget goes down, we consistently ask the RNESU board to consider reductions at the central office level as well, because, right, it makes an impact. So at this point, RNESU, even though they didn't have to, has reduced from the first budget defeat to now 4.6%, right? Like, actually, RNESU has made the largest reductions in each of the budgets. And one last thing just to sort of know, when people talk about RNESU and central office, it sort of feels like we're talking about a bunch of adults sitting around in an office that's air conditioned and having coffee. RNESU when we think about the RNESU budget, it consists of a lot of positions and people that do provide a direct service: special educators, interventionists, school psychologists, mental health, all of our bus drivers, all of our custodians, all of our food service. Those all exist in the RNESU budget. And we look at all of those as well when we're talking about reductions. And to your point, can we do a much better job, and have we learned in the first 2 budget defeats how we sort of want to present information and make changes? Yeah, absolutely. Once the board sort of settles on it, we know that we have to do a much better job about getting information out to taxpayers.
Minor correction, it's 6 board members on RNSU, not 5. We're going to be talking about that relationship tonight extensively, so stick around. I think many of your points are cogent.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. All right. So we have a presentation tonight from the Student Voice and Agency from the Neshobe Student Council. So they would like to come in.
Would you like them up front?
Yes, that would be good. Yeah.
of our grades 4 through 6 student council. They presented to you at the beginning of the school year. And since they have begun and their work with Miss Lee, they have done an amazing job at not only sharing their voice, but also getting the voice of others within the school, and have just, they are the epitome of student agency at Neshobe specifically. So take it away, student council.
Can the screen be shared with their
Oh, yeah. I shared the slideshow with you. Sorry, Kristen. Can you?
Yep.
Thank you.
Hello, we are here to present to you about Student Voice in the Agency. Student Voice in the Agency provides opportunities for students to collaborate and make decisions with adults around what and how they learn and how their learning is assessed.
Nice and loud.
Communications and ideas. The Student Council has come up with suggestion boxes this year. We put up the boxes in every hallway of Neshobe and met with all of the classes we represent. We want students to know that their voices and ideas matter. We've collected so many suggestions this year.
Several students suggested that we put in a sandbox on the playground. We're on our way to making that happen. Here are some of the bulletin boards we created to show students that we care and their ideas count. This one is the whole school, or the whole student council went to a classroom and showed kids like how to be respectful to the boxes and what to do. And on that one, you might have seen it walking in, but like that's kind of how it's set around all over the school. And we've been working on like how to be kind and stuff. And we get like at least 10 suggestions like every 2 days. So.
Student Council has decided to make Neshobe new. Videos that teachers can show their classes during morning meeting or advisory time. We did this for a couple reasons. Sometimes the morning announcements are too quiet so people can't hear them. And honestly, some people don't always listen to the announcements, but they will watch the video most likely they focus. Lastly, it's good for students and teachers to see the faces of Student Council so they can be inspired and feel free.
Yeah, we have a video we want to show you of, the video.
The video doesn't, I don't have access.
We'll come back to it in just a second. Yeah, so starting mid-year, Student Council began leading all school assemblies, and there's things that we do in these all school assemblies that we lead by ourselves, and we'll do greetings and sometimes all school songs that the music teacher will help with, some jokes, and sometimes important announcements and information. By doing this, we have been able to use student voice by modeling school leadership, teamwork, courage, kindness, perseverance, communication, and resilience. And that's a picture of some of the kids at the high school assemblies.
The Student Council has organized some celebrations, and one of them has been teacher retirement. We have 3 teachers retiring. Student Council has created a slideshow, and in it are slides for each of the retirees. So we also did some things with the solar eclipse. During the solar eclipse, we made a mural, and it's got hung in gallery in Brandon. I think it was at the Fallon Politics. This was an opportunity to share our work with the wider community. We also did something for Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week. During this week, we helped write kind messages that tell teachers and staff how much we appreciate them, made banners and hung them around the school, helped write thank you notes to all teachers and staff?
So all the way on the left, you can see writing kind messages in chalk for Teacher Appreciation Week. Yeah. And then in the middle, we're working on our solar eclipse mural that was in the Found Objects Gallery. Yeah. And then the banner on the far right that we made for Teacher Appreciation Week. And we believe that all faculty and staff are teachers.
We did like chalk all around school, like everywhere there was cement, we would like chalk something. We even did it on
Baking.
walls.
Yeah.
Like that.
We worked hard in solar eclipse too.
Next school year, we're planning to have a weekly feature teacher. This includes all faculty and staff because they are all teachers. We will honor a different teacher every week by giving them a special parking spot for the whole week, honoring them in our Neshobe School or Neshobe News video, sharing some information about them. This gives the Neshobe staff and students to get to know more about one another throughout the year.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to present today. Now, if you have any questions or comments.
First, I want to thank you for doing this. You're learning already, I think, that committee work can be hard and sometimes boring. So I appreciate that. When you're adults, you're going to be on committees like this, and that's very necessary. So thanks, and keep up the good work. Also, I think some of the ideas are great. I would love to have a special parking place for a week. That would be fantastic. And then the last comment is we've got a 7-to-2 ratio of girls to boys. I know boys at your age can be not quite as mature and responsible, but we need to encourage boys in leadership too. So the two gentlemen on my right, thank you, and keep it up.
Yeah, also not all student councils are. Yeah, there's some.
It's 50-50, like there's baseball tonight.
Okay.
Softball's here.
So we might be showing that video. I don't know if we can.
Jacob owns the video, so we get
It's really good because I feel like with student council, we get to all work together, and like if you weren't friends with that person before, you might not be best friends with them now, but you respect them as a person.
And one thing about the video is if we can, we're showing the older one, which we did two weeks ago or last week. And then to show like how we've improved our video making skills.
Yeah, we use the green screen. Which
Yeah, it did not work out well.
And then this time, I think there was better recording. And
We worked really hard.
And we did it in the library this time.
And you got some feedback in the chat that this, not only was this an excellent presentation, but someone saw the solstice mural and it was so great they didn't know it was planned by Neshobe Student Council.
and our teachers helped a lot.
Kristen, it is there if you want to.
I emailed you a link to the video.
Yeah, and the student council, while Kristen is looking for that, the student council meets typically several times a month after school, as well as they often give up their lunches and their recesses to do some of this work. So I am incredibly proud of all of them. They should be proud of themselves, and a huge thank you to Ms. Lee for really taking an idea and running with it.
All right, here's the video.
Today is Carnival Day, so all the students can have fun in the sun. There will
I should not be in charge of tech.
Good morning, this is Neshobe News. The sixth grade only has 18 days left of school. Today is May 17th and the Carnival Day. Have a great day. Today is Carnival Day, so all the students can have fun in the sun. Today there will be lots of fun like games like the dip bench and the obstacle course.
It's up as high as it goes.
You have the chance to go high.
I need a microphone.
So can one of you share, can one of you share what this video was about and why you wanted to send it to classes? Go ahead, Lauren.
So the day that we made the video for was Neshobe Carnival Day, where we all of the grades except preschool, I think, we all got together and all the sixth graders ran like carnival booths. And after that, all the sixth graders kind of got their time after. And the video was kind of sharing about what the carnival would be like, and like all the food and all like the expectations and some of the activities you could do.
There's also little buddies the older kids had, or the younger kids had some buddies.
Yeah, some like I know my grade was there, so a kindergartner came up to go there.
To add on to what Wally said, we made the video because, like in the slide, kids don't really pay attention to the announcements and then just talk through it. So if they like see a visual, I think they'll pay more attention. And the sixth graders in the carnival set up all the activities and projects. And then half an hour after we got to all hang out, I think it was like, it's a really good experience for the school because everyone can kind of hang out and you can maybe meet new people with no little buddies and big buddies, and the sixth graders can work together to do something like that for the school.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, you guys.
We have another presentation, Integrated Arts and Extended Learning Opportunities.
Going after fourth grade student council, that's not really fair, right?
I mean, there's like 50 of you sharing me presentations. No, I got it. Hold on.
So while Kristen is sort of popping that up, I went ahead and asked our integrated arts teachers across all of our NASU to send me some highlights from their year. Almost all of the teams at some point throughout the year connect together to talk about their work. And so some of the things that you may see in one school are happening in several schools because they do share their work and share different units. And as I go through sort of each of the content areas, I'll share a little bit about their big work that may not be sort of displayed here. These are more individual projects. So we'll start off with art. And the art teachers this year are working on what they're calling the Big Art Show, and that will take place at the end of the year next year. So students will work all next year on art. Let's see, at the March in-service, they visited the Middlebury Art Building at Middlebury College, sort of got some ideas on presentations, and so that should be really exciting work next year. This is it's called the Shoebox Museum from Barstow. Again, this may be happening in other buildings. And they visited the Vincent van Gogh Museum or presentation in 4th grade. And so this was sort of a carryover project the next year. And all of these projects were displayed in the Chaffee Art Museum. We've got some other slides next. This is more of the Shoebox Museum. This is OCA Night of the Arts. So almost all of our schools, actually all of our schools, have different celebrations of learning. This happened to be what OCA did this year in Night of the Arts. Mr. Matt, one of our art teachers is also a cartoonist. So he sort of brings a little bit of different talent to the group as well. So world language, we have a couple of different presentations for world language. This happens to be 8th grade, and they learned several words about different clothing and how to use those words in sentences, and then they created so they created phrases using those words, and then they made their clothing and displays and had to describe their clothing as a project. So French at Otter Valley, they did a lot of work. I believe you might recognize someone in one of these projects.
See, that's what I was talking about.
Presentations. So they made truffles and then they made crepes, but it wasn't just all about the food. Actually, do you want to tell us?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, they were a little bit bitter, but once we put sugar on it, it was wonderful. It was chocolate. It's always wonderful to make. It's a tradition we've done, I think, every year, like at the end of the semester in French class. So.
Great. And what is the language that sort of goes along with that? Do you have to learn parts of the recipe and French?
We, as the year goes on, we learn little bits and pieces, or the names of foods and stuff, how it was in different cultures and areas of France and all over the world. The foods they make, and we made some different stuff like from the south of France and other French-speaking areas.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Those are the crepes. So in 8th grade, in 8th grade for Spanish, they did a family tree unit. So they had a choice of either researching their own family history or a famous family, or they could make up a pretend family. And of course, there was language that they learned with that. And so they paired their research with the new language that they learned and did some presentations. So and this was at Otter Valley. So you may see some former students here. So I'm going to turn this over to Hannah Fiel at Neshobe. So our Neshobe Library Media, I would say that they are probably the tightest group. They really get together a lot.
Well,
so
as a group of librarians, we've worked really hard over the years. The state has several different book awards through all the grades. So the youngest kids do the Red Clover Book Award, which we mostly do within the individual schools. And then at the middle grade level, there's the Golden Dome Book Award. And there's a tradition in our district of having a district-wide celebration, in part because there used to be a statewide celebration and it wasn't super feasible to get a whole bunch of kids to Montpelier for an author presentation. And so we always planned something more locally. And over the past 10 years that I've been here, it's always been a trivia competition, but now it's a trivia competition where everybody who has read at least 5 of the books is there participating, trying to answer questions and winning free books if they do answer them right. But we actually give books to everybody at the end, so they just win first choice. And then we have an author present as well, and we try to get an author of one of the books from the Golden Dome list each year, which is pretty special. It's one of the ways, I do a book fair for fundraising every year, and I use the proceeds from that to fund the author who comes to the Golden Dome event. So it's a really special event. We usually have somewhere between 150 and 180 students participating in that between grades 4 and grades 8 across all of the elementary age schools in our district, elementary and middle schools. Here's some other projects in our library. So all of the libraries across the district this year worked with Lego EV3 robots that are owned by Lothrop School, because one of the Golden Dome books was about a Mars rover, and so we practiced programming robots. The end result of our project at Neshobe was that they had to program a dance for the robot to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, because it's like a pivotal song in the book that's like very sentimental and wonderful. And so there you can see some of the 5th graders in Mrs. Coolidge's class working on building their robots, and you can't really see it in this picture, but in this one they're holding some of the built rovers, the final design that we ended up with. Go to the next slide. So this is 6th grade students exploring the library at the beginning of the year. We do an interactive scavenger hunt using iPads where they're filming videos of themselves talking about books they read in the summer and practicing finding different areas of the library. I like to incorporate, technology and use tools like that throughout the program, just so that they're using it in the same way that they would in their everyday life, right? And maybe finding new uses for technology through that. We can go to the next slide. So this is a project that I've been doing for a long time. The 2nd graders make commercials for the Red Clover books. So the Red Clover Award is 10 picture books that are nominated. I'm actually the statewide chair of the Red Clover Committee, so I participate in selecting those books throughout the year, every year. And then my 2nd graders practice their persuasive writing, which is one of their goals as students, in 2nd grade. They have to work on persuasive writing. And so their teachers and I collaboratively, before I covered their planning time, designed this unit. And now I basically execute it myself in the library because I cover 2nd grade planning time. And they can't participate in the way, although sometimes they do give up their planning time in order to be able to participate in working with their students on this project. And so they write a commercial for a Red Clover book of their choice, and we film it behind with the green screen. And it's really adorable. There's a link, if you look at this slideshow later, to see some of the commercials created by Mrs. Hayes' class this year. They're very sweet. Jasmine was once in one of these commercials at her very home. And then the last project I wanted to talk about is a bigger collaboration that goes between Mrs. Best's 3rd grade class and Mr. Brodowski, the art teacher, and myself, Mr. B. And it's called the What You Do Matters project. I was kind of hoping to be in the library because some of these portraits are hanging up in there. So in the What You Do Matters project, students work with Mrs. Best throughout the year to learn about character traits and to learn about real and fictional people that might represent those character traits. And then come springtime, I come in and I start working with them on choosing a person, a real person, who really strongly represents one of those character traits and has done some good in the world, right? Using whatever they are known for. And so they choose their character and they write what is effectively an enormous essay for 3rd graders, like more than a page of writing for most students, about why that person needs to be part of Neshobe's portrait gallery. And then they need to present to a panel of students who are in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade who already did the project that I organize in the library. They present their essays orally, which is practice with that verbal expression, right, oral expression. And I don't know, how is it, girls? Is it overwhelming when you're presenting to that group? Kind of, yeah. Jasmine was part of my first ever panel, I believe. Yeah, before we had students doing the project, and I don't know, Sig and Marion and Elsie are current panel members, but they also presented in the past as part of that project. So after they have an approved character for the project, they go on to write a whole biography and create a really detailed portrait with Mr. B. And the culmination of the project is an art opening. The portraits remain at Neshobe School. They're all hung here in perpetuity. We're working on a website so that it can be shared more widely as well, that is linked from that first slide. And they create a book creator book where they write a full biography of their person and narrate it out loud. And so all the portraits have little QR codes where you can access their book creator books if you scan them. It's a really special project and something that can only happen because we have the flexibility to collaborate among integrated arts teachers and classroom teachers. So that's reception in the library. So I think you're going to talk about that.
Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah,
and as you can hear, not just our library media teachers, but all of our integrated arts teachers work very closely with our classroom teachers on a ton of projects. So, and not just, you think you go to the library and check out books. Well, here's an example of research being done. Hannah talked a little bit about some research. So there was some research done at Barstow. They researched creating a pollinator garden in 1 year, And then on the next slide, you'll see, and they went through the whole cycle of inquiry, and the next year they're sort of tending more to their garden. They also, Hannah spoke a little bit about the Red Clover books, and the younger learners at both OCA and at Barstow created little sort of presentations through Book Creator. When you get the presentation, you can sort of click on the link there, and they make digital books. Our first and second graders can make digital books out of that one tool, and they can make them quite easily. I remember watching it at Lothrop last year. They could just scoot right through and put together a book for that in no time flat. Thinking about Lothrop School, this is an example of, on the left, there's a picture of some book review podcasts that the students created, and on the right is an introduction to coding. So they do a lot of different things, just like in the other libraries at Lothrop as well. So next, the work of our PE teachers, I'm looking forward next year to them all having similar schedules. Right now, their schedules are a little broken up, so it was hard for them to get together during early release days, but their sort of big work is creating and identifying our health curriculum. We just have new guidance that came out. So they're sort of doing that during early release. Some things that are happening in the schools, we've got circus acts, we have yoga, we have team building, there's bike safety, I think, on the next slide, and that happens in a lot of our schools. Balancing, more balancing, and jump roping. And there's the bike trailer that usually hits most of our schools. So Neshobe also has a skateboard class. There's a little video if you want to watch that. They've been doing that actually for quite a few years. It was featured on WCAX. And again, now that our PE teachers will all be able to collaborate on early release days, you'll see even more of what they do sort of spread out through all the schools. So our music teachers have collaborated again this year, and they were the most impacted by the pandemic. All of the safety procedures for them, that had to happen right up until the last day. I mean, they were still spacing kids apart for a very long time. And they're working really hard to strategize to sort of build their programs back up. This year they did a project where schools all came to Lothrop and they did music in our schools. So everybody sort of had a opportunity to play together. And they're working on creating, I think they're calling it the big band, the big marching band. They're looking at trying to create a large marching band so that it includes the high schools, so that we have sort of representation from all of the schools. And that's it. Any questions? Yes?
This is really just a comment, primarily is for Hannah. I can't tell you how important libraries were in my life. And people say, oh, everything, all knowledge is on the internet now. It's not true. If you want to learn anything in depth, you have to go to a library. And capturing kids' minds when they're 6, 7, 8 years old, that's the whole story. So thank you for your work. The library is incredibly important. And honestly, my life would not be the same without libraries.
Any other questions about integrated arts? I could go on and on with all of the things that our IA teachers do, and I don't know if I've ever been in a district where they have worked so closely with the classroom teachers. Lothrop, I'm pointing at Brett because I think he's had children in there recently. They put on a musical, I think they're on their 4th one right now. It takes a full year to pull together. Everyone's involved in it, from choreography to sets to music to practice, all of it's involved. So great job, integrated arts teachers.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Hannah. All right, so we're moving on. Fiscal year 25 budget, continued discussion and next steps. So
we thought we could start with Max briefly presenting the survey. We got like 600 responses from, and he did put the presentation up on the website already under budget information.
Okay.
So I see them.
Yep.
Barely.
Just barely.
That's better.
Survey is still live out there. If you want to see the report out, we actually got one response during the course of this meeting. So those 300 total responses they broke down, we had 182 parents and grandparents, 92 staff members, and 71 community members without children in the district. Now, you might say that doesn't actually add up to 300. I'm bad at math, I'm not that bad at math. It's just some people are both parents and staff members. So there is some overlap between those categories. People were able to select multiple responses. So the first thing that we asked people to do was to kind of say what their values are. We have certain fixed costs, such as our staff salaries. But when thinking as a board, what's important when making decisions for the budget, we can see overall, we are looking at providing additional support and intervention services for students who are struggling academically. Had 205 people say that's one of their most important things that they selected that the board should consider. What I did is I actually went further and I broke it down by individual, by those subgroups of parents and grandparents, staff, and then community members who don't have children in the schools. For our parents and grandparents, they said that the most important variables that the board should be considering were providing additional support and intervention services for students who are struggling academically, providing social and emotional support to students, providing extracurricular and athletic opportunities for students, providing bus transportation, and updating curriculum and teaching material to stay current with best practices. When we looked at our staff said that providing additional support and intervention services for students who are struggling academically. They said providing extracurricular and athletic opportunities for students and providing social and emotional support to students, as well as continuing maintenance and safety improvements to the buildings and grounds. When we looked at our community members without children enrolled in our schools, they said that the four things that we most should look at as a board are providing additional support and intervention services for students who are struggling academically, providing extracurricular and athletic opportunities for students, continuing maintenance and safety improvements to buildings and grounds, and then keeping up with information technology and technological infrastructure. So after asking them about these different variables, we then asked people to say, what are the specific needs? What are some programs that we should really keep? What are those needs that might not have been addressed within that first question about values? And what I did was I took the 300 responses we got and I analyzed them and came up with some overarching themes that we had that came up in people's comments. So the first were staffing concerns. The highlights within staffing concerns were retaining teachers and support staff, address concerns about large class sizes, and then reducing administrative costs. When we looked at facilities and infrastructure, there was a focus on maintenance and repairs for school facilities, and then improving safety and security measures, including sanitation, cameras, also heat in some buildings also came up as well. There were a lot of comments about student programs and extracurricular activities, maintaining and enhancing after-school programs, as well as support for arts, music, theater, sports, and specialized learning opportunities. When looking at mental health and social-emotional learning, there was a call for increased support for mental health services and professionals, as well as to implement effective behavioral support systems. When we looked at curriculum and instruction, it looked at balancing basic academic focus with individualized learning paths. And then calls for transparency and fiscal responsibility, improving budget transparency and including the community in the process, and exploring innovative cost-saving measures. Some things that kind of came up a few times were 4-day school leave or school consolidation as well. What I did then was I kind of went through and I pulled out some key quotes within those different themes for you to be able to see what people kind of directly said. When looking at staffing concerns, they said, keeping the amazing teachers we have and the extra supports that were initiated to allow catch-up from COVID, and more staff being able to observe activity amongst kids for their safety, as far as seeing bullying in the moment. When looking at facilities and infrastructure, there were quotes calling for fixing the school's heating system and ceiling tiles, and then cameras for hallways in all buildings, including the new modular buildings that have been installed. We're talking about student programs and extracurriculars. There was a lot of call for cutting sports and programs for kids comes at a cost to our students' experiences and outcomes. When looking at SEL, they talked about how social and emotional needs and interventions need to be in place for classrooms to thrive. There needs to be more individualized learning paths for all students. And then when talking about transparency and fiscal responsibility, somebody said, quote, "It would seem that community members are talking about needing a visible change. As a staff member, I feel most productive to see our school buildings expanded in a permanent way, not modulars. I believe that combining schools is effective, but only if we have safe and properly sized buildings to house all of us. But in order to make this shift in spending, it would seem that a lot of that money needs to be taken from elsewhere in our budgets because the community says they cannot spare more money. Individually, they are on the edge of losing assets such as their homes." So we can see kind of this call for needing visible change, but also keeping in mind our community members. When looking at the final question, was just asking for any additional comments people might have. And kind of going through those 301 responses now that we got, there were concerns about administrative costs. There was a call to focus on direct student impact, increased calls for transparency and communication, looking at ways for cost reduction strategies, calls for education and advocacy around our budget, and then increasing community involvement within the budgetary process. Again, I pulled a lot of quotes for the board. I did share this with you earlier. For everyone else, this is available right now, this presentation, on our budget webpage. So I encourage you to go there to look at it. I'd like to leave you kind of with the two quotes that kind of stuck out to me that I included at the end of this presentation, which were, "I am concerned the community does not actually realize what will need to happen in order to reduce the budget in a way that they will accept. I'm worried they're only looking at the cost and then after the fact will be upset about what is cut after it is too late." And then the final quote I had was, "I know that the board has exceptionally challenging decisions to make. I also realize that at this point, any decision made will have to be a cut to a program or staffing that we value. Thank you for your service, and I hope you're able to get this next budget through."
Thank you, Max. Does anyone have any questions for Max? Okay. So,
Brenda.
Not see her.
She's up there.
Okay.
There
Oh,
she is.
Hello, Brenda.
It's one of the supplemental docs.
Oh, I can't hear her.
No, she's muted.
She's not muted. Brenda, do you want me to show the OVU Revote 2 list? Is that what you want me to show? I can't hear her. You don't have it. You don't have any volume.
She nodded.
She did say yes, though.
I know, I just want to make sure we can
Now
hear
we can
her.
hear you, but she needs to be amplified.
She's at a conference. Yeah, yeah. Where'd she go? It's not her. I mean, I can do it. Not well.
Is there any way to make that bigger?
Is there what?
Any way to make it bigger?
No.
There we go. Thanks.
Do you see her on there? Do you see her on your screen? Do you want to talk about the board vacancies and wait for her to reconnect?
Sure, we can do that. Okay. So, at the last board meeting, I indicated to everyone that there are 5 board vacancies that we've known about for a while. The Brandon rep, Leicester rep, Pittsford rep, Whiting rep, and then we have an at-large position also open. I had also indicated that we would be able to put them on the ballot. However, that is not the case. There was some miscommunication. So, what I would like to do is, we've already received some letters of interest for different positions. I would like to put that back out to the community again to let them know for our next meeting that we will appoint these 5 positions at our next board meeting. Yes.
Do they need to be there?
They do not need to be there. We just have to have a letter of interest before the meeting so that we can deliberate and decide who we want to appoint.
Just an email to you?
Just an email to me. Yep. Yes.
Where are you going to publicize this?
I think we'll probably put it on our school websites and also on Front Porch Forum, all that stuff. We'll also probably ask to put it in the paper.
Will an email?
I don't know if there'll be a superintendent series going out anytime soon. We can also put it in all of our newsletters going home to parents, but we should also we should somehow contact with community members as well who might want to be on the board as well. So, yes.
Do we need to revisit the voting machine issue for the election then?
Do we need to what?
Revisit the voting machine issue?
No, we won't have to do that because we will be appointing, so we won't have to use the voting machine to count ballots for elected officials. They will have to rerun for the position that, whoever we appoint will have to rerun for the position.
I meant for the upcoming budget vote.
No, we'll just do we'll just do regular voting. There's no reason to spend $500 for a one yes or no vote. Okay. So what he was asking about is that there's a new ballot machine that you can use to tally votes, but you have to program it, and to program it costs $500, where we can have a bunch of volunteers and do it up for free. So we're going to do that option. Okay. So if anyone is interested for any of those 5 positions, you just need to send a letter of interest to myself or to Melinda Piper, and we will include it in our next board packet for our June 2nd meeting. I think it's June 2nd. June 4th. Excuse me, June 4th. Has she found her way?
I mean, I turned on the captions, which by the way are comical. Like, they are not correct. And I see Brenda's talking, but I don't think I can hear her.
Can you hear me now?
Oh,
Yes.
there you are. Hello.
Yay.
Hi, sorry about that.
Okay, you're on.
From the start, right? You haven't done anything while I was trying to figure out where we were?
That's correct.
Okay, so just a couple of information to remind people. Before the budget was created for the town meeting vote, we had reduced $500,000 to get below the 10% growth increase, or the 5% growth increase under Act 127. That was later repealed, but we did reduce that. As you may or may not remember, in the budget that was just defeated, Revote 1, we've reduced another $268,000. A couple of things that have happened since Revote 1.
is the legislature set the yield at 9,893. It's a little bit higher than we were using in our revote 1 projections. The governor has indicated he may veto that. That hasn't happened yet, but just for your information, that's the number we're using as we create any of these projections. 1 cent on the tax rate, so how much would we reduce to change the tax rate by 1 cent is $210,000, and 1% on the budget is $241,000. The fiscal year 24, the current year that we're in, has an equalized homestead tax rate of $1.20.4. So depending on how people round, generally that would be $1.20. That is what, when I say equalized tax rate, that means if all CLAs were at 100%. So your equalized standard tax rate is $1.24. The defeated budget was $27,247,000 at town meeting. The revised budget for the revote 1 was $26,979,000. The revised equalized homestead tax rate would have been $1.25, $1.26, depending on rounding, or a 4.4% increase. So as Kristen had said earlier, this document is not a proposal. It is a list of options that we still have, whereas she said not tied down. I like that language. The first one, however, the Rutland Northeast reduction is a real number. That's Otter Valley's share of the revote 2 Rutland Northeast reduction is $150,000. Rutland Northeast in the 2 revotes in the first budget revote reduced $168,000. This reduction is $177,000. Overall, the Rutland Northeast budget has been reduced 4.6% from the original budget. This last reduction, the $176,857, of which OVU's share is $150,000. Lori had indicated it earlier. That is reducing a mental health school-based clinician, shifting a current school-based health coordinator from special education into Medicaid, reducing office supplies, eliminating board training, reducing office substitutes, deferring some central office facility repairs and maintenance, and reducing the newly added information technician. But to add that position, we reduced the part-time intern position, which has successfully been really kind of a growing to job relationship with students from Castleton University. So we eliminated the technician position, but reinstated the part-time intern position. So kind of going down the list, in the revote 1, the board had asked for a 1 cent reduction and a 3 cent reduction. So the things on this list, the 3 cent reduction, are things that are still open positions. The first one would be reducing elementary world language. The next one would be reducing the Otter Creek Academy at Lester Library part-time assistant, reducing $20,000 for the Otter Valley Union Middle High School work-based shuttle, reducing $15,000 and trimming multiple Otter Valley Unified Union Middle and High School budget lines, department lines, reducing all club stipends from Otter Valley Union Middle High School, reducing $10,000 also from Otter Valley Union Middle High School for summer curriculum development work, reducing or eliminating a business position that is currently open, but buying back a part-time 50% PE position. And then again, as Kristen and Lori had mentioned earlier, reducing one class size teacher at Lothrop and one at Neshobe to bring their class sizes larger. So at Lothrop, they would go from 1 to 11 to 1 to 22, and Neshobe in grade 4, and Neshobe's grade 6 class ratio would go from 1 to 13 to 1 to 20. It's important to note that Neshobe is projected to be a 1-year reduction. And obviously these classroom reductions will impact our ability of staff to meet the varied and high needs of our students. So that's not really new information. We talked about that at the last budget conversation for the last 3 votes. Then this is in no particular order from this section down, but some of the things that we can still reduce is we have an open guidance position at Otter Valley. We have an open business position at Otter Valley. Note that you can't do both, right? So in the 3-cent one was reducing half of that position and classifying or redirecting half of it to PE. So you can't do that and then also reduce this one full-time position. So some of these things are on this list in duplicate. We have a middle school arts position open. 8th grade social studies. We have some transportation that is across all of the Otter Valley schools. So this is co-curricular at the high school as well as field trips and other sporting and or curricular trips in the elementary school. We could reduce $221,000 in total. The co-curricular would be $96,000. Eliminating the Otter Valley Union Middle High School late run would be $40,000. Eliminating vocational runs, we run to both the Hannaford Career Center and to Stafford Tech, so we kind of run north and south. That would be just under $54,000. And then we have a daily shuttle to move students around to North Campus, to the Parent-Child Center, to other support flexible pathways. The other thing that we could do is eliminate all co-curricular activities. Just a reminder, some of the things above in the 3-cent reduction already took some of these. This number here, $435,000, includes what's above, so you can't add, it's not additive at this point. Some are already listed above. Or just eliminate the department head stipends. And then we have some open positions still, paraeducator at the high school, library support position also at the middle and high school. And we have some contracts that are open, and honestly, some may have come in from the time this was printed and sent to you, but there is an elementary position, full-time at Lothrop and part-time at Otter Creek Academy for music. 3 science positions at the high school. I think one of them may have signed. I think that's down to 2 now.
They did.
Yeah. And a guidance position that came in just recently at the high school and middle school. And I believe this math intervention has also signed. So that contract is now filled. And I was asked to also include from the board reductions in board professional development to put them on the list. So again, this list is not in any order, is not any sort of recommendation. It is really just options. We try to be specific in what we can share, what the position is and what the effects would be for students and for the budget. I don't know if anyone has any questions or how else I can help you.
Yeah, and Lori, can I just piggyback on what Brenda said? Each of the building principals and leaders, which you can see in the document, and Brenda read some of them, sort of shared if you made this reduction, this would be the impact to our schools, to our kids. If I'm talking about Otter Valley, to actually like the programs we're able to offer kids. So you can see that all listed out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well,
There's a comment in the chat.
Okay, well, I'm going to let Fernanda go, and then we'll look at that comment.
Whew. So it sounds like the 150,000 has already been reduced.
Yep.
So we're adding to that if we think we want to make a difference. I would suggest that we eliminate the 20,000 board professional development. We've already eliminated the 50,000. So we can make do with the free VSBA. So to me, that's an easy go. Everything else is not. And the only wondering I have that I just, transportation is a high cost. This transportation is essential, but I would suggest, has anybody spoken to public transport and what the ability is of them to be flexible to help us with our schedule? So the Parent-Child Center, for example, or some of these other smaller transportation pieces. Is there a way to save on that?
I think sort of generally, Brenda will tell you no. We certainly, if we have students who have to go to another program like that, and we know how hard we've struggled to fill our bus driver positions the last couple of years, so that's sort of been on the table as something they've been considering. Generally speaking, those costs are higher, and most of our runs are rural enough that it ends up making more sense in some places to send one of our bus drivers out with 2 kids than it does to sort of add them on to like local transportation, even if we can find it. So some of their, in the sort of transportation conversations, and I don't know if Michael's on there, but Brenda definitely is, as they're thinking about runs that can be reduced or trips that can sort of be taken off the table, you are, in theory, reducing kids' access to those programs, right? Because that becomes an equity issue. We have a lot of students who go to those programs who wouldn't be able to transport themselves. So there's that flip side of that.
My last comment is, I do not want to reduce a teacher. I do not want to reduce a teacher. Or,
She doesn't want to reduce a teacher.
there's the staffing pieces are really, to me, no-goes. And I don't necessarily feel like nickel and diming supplies, trimming budgets that way is going to get us anywhere. And it's going to cause more grief. So we are between a rock and a hard place. And I'm really not sure how the rest of you feel, but I'm just feeling like 170,000 is a good try. I don't know that I'm willing to go any further.
What's the comment in the chat?
They're public, they're not school board, but if you want to know, one person said, can we add to the suggestions? And then the other comment is about the poor audio quality.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess.
Which we know.
Well, yes, sir.
Those programs that are off our school grounds, is it possible to bring them to our schools?
We can't bring Stafford to us, no. That's the vocational run.
It's the Stafford side.
Right. So
Stafford
and
Hannaford Family Parent-Child Center. Yeah, those are not our programs.
So the other facilities, like the Sudbury location, that's part of our funding as well, correct? Well, how is that funding that building, keeping it running, keeping it staffed?
That's special ed. But are you talking about busing to that?
No, that the whole building itself. Why is special ed off campus? Why can't they be part of our community?
Well, they are part of our, I mean, that school belongs to us, but do Are you thinking that you can save a bunch of money by shuttering Sudbury and bringing those kids somewhere else?
Bring them here, bring them to the schools they should be at. You know what I mean? So how I think is, if that's special ed, why can't they be part of our school community?
I'm gonna let Marcia answer that question for you because that is her program that she created.
Okay.
So Marcia, Bruce, the question from Paul is he wants to know why the students at Sudbury who are special education students, why are they not here at Neshobe or in their particular schools? Why are they in their own building?
The Sudbury School services a very small group of students that have to be in a different setting because being in the public school setting with all of the noise, the lights and auditory stimulation is too much for them, and they need a smaller, less stimulating environment where all of their related services and special education needs can be met. When they are in a bigger school setting, that's stimulating, they shut down and can't access their learning or make progress.
Yeah, most special education students in our district are in our buildings.
They are, okay.
Yes.
I just feel like it's very alienating to ship when we should be
It is
teaching.
a very specialized program for a very specialized population.
Thinking more, for me, I'm thinking to teach also our community to.
I'm sorry, I can't hear any of the,
I understand that's the importance of it. I guess I didn't understand the severity of, some of them need that kind of climate. I think also it's just like teaching the kids that are able to be here to be like a community team, inclusive, learning how to adapt with those, because if you don't have it around you as you grow, how can you understand when you
Well, that may become part of their plan as they move forward. Right now, they can't have that overstimulation. I happened to be over there when we had Brooke Olson-Farrell come, and I got to go. And to see that it really is a wonderful program as far as, they're open to learning. And they are inquisitive, and I'm not sure that would necessarily happen here with all of the noise. It's very quiet there. They can go outside. They've got a great playground. They can do lots of exploration outside. And the staff that's there was very appreciative of having that space because it said it makes their job much easier. And the kids seem super happy, actually.
that environment is considered their least restrictive environment. When they're they all were in the Neshobe building. They're all Neshobe students whose teams referred them to a less stimulating environment. The staffing pattern is no more at Sudbury than it would be anywhere else, and their costs would be similar no matter where they are. The setting helps them make progress and meets their needs in their least restrictive environment. Their placements are all done by their individual educational teams, and it's our responsibility to meet their needs. So they really do well there, and that is the appropriate setting for it.
Brad, I saw your hand go up.
I was going to ask a clarifying question because I thought it would be good to just get it out there and talk about the funding mechanism for that space, because I'm guessing a lot of that is probably funded through special ed funding.
That is true.
Which is reimbursed.
Yes, it is reimbursed. Well, it's a block grant.
It's a block grant.
Other questions regarding, so it sounds like you've made a proposal. Someone would have to second that proposal. Her proposal is that we cut the $20,000 board PD along with the RNESU reduction that's already been made of $150,250 for a total savings of $170,250. So that is, are you seconding her motion or do you have a question?
I have a question once we get past.
All right, so let's see if we get a second before we, all right, so.
Yeah, that's that.
All right, so this, I'm gonna let Charlene catch up.
And Natalie has her hand raised too.
Okay, I'll be right there, Natalie. So you got the second was from Barbara? Was by Fernanda to make, and then Barbara seconding. Okay. Brett, you can ask your question, and then we'll go to Natalie.
Okay, I'm gonna start with a comment and finish with a question.
Okay.
The comment I want to make, and I'm trying not to be negative because I don't find that very productive for this overall conversation, but I want to say, I think it needs to be said, I was very disappointed that our NASU took action on a revised budget vote last week. Didn't take into account the survey results. I think that's a little bit unfair to our voters. It left a really bad taste in my mouth that action got taken without really stopping and waiting to hear information back from the community. So I want to say that. I'll try not to be negative after that. And then I guess the question that is now escaping me after making that comment, maybe it'll come to me.
Okay. Natalie.
It's kind of hard for me to hear, so I don't know if my question is coming in at the right time, but I'm curious about transportation, and if we looked at, instead of just getting rid of all transportation, to reducing or only providing it to kids who have a need, or anybody out there, in a certain radius, and everybody who lives within, let's say, a mile, have to bring their kids in. I don't know. I know we're having problems with finding drivers, so is there a way to reduce our busing cost by reducing some of our runs? And was that looked at?
I'm going to defer that question to Brenda because she is the transportation coordinator person.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
So, yes and no. So I think, Natalie, you're talking about to and from school. And I did ask the bus drivers to tell us how many students they're transporting in the morning and the afternoon to just get a flavor for that. And there are 580 students in the morning, generally on Otter Valley buses, and 654 in the afternoon. In addition to that, of course, are the late runs that aren't included in this. This was just to and from school. So we're generally transporting about half of our students. And I'm not sure, I think it might be a real hardship to look within a mile of any of our schools. The other thing that's important to remember is that, statistically speaking, the actual safest transportation is kids on a big yellow school bus. So adding the traffic to our schools, actually any of them, if we had more vehicular traffic coming in and out, it would be even more challenging than some of our sites are right now versus bringing approximately half of our students in on a bus. So we didn't look at that, but we did provide some information and some statistics just for you to know that it is actually, half of our students using the busing facilities is pretty impressive. That means that these students can be anywhere from almost next door to the school to, the farthest corner of Sudbury or Leicester or Pittsburgh, almost out by West Rutland. It could be from anywhere that they are riding. Our runs are not short. They're pushing an hour at some of the smaller schools.
Does that answer?
So we felt the best thing to look at was the non to and from school runs. Also, contracts have been issued for all buses, but the non to and from school runs do allow for 72 hours of notification to change, increase, or remove runs.
So you're saying, Brenda, that the to and from school bus runs are contracted, all the other bus runs are not?
They're all contracted. The to and from school bus runs are contracted for 178 days. The other extra runs during the day are not. They're considered extra runs. And by the nature of some of our needs and students and where they may need to be transported to, we know that they are much more fluid. So we do have an opportunity to change, add, or reduce those runs with a 72-hour notice.
Okay.
Which is why they're on the list and not to and from school.
Sure. Okay.
Does that affect any of the bus runs for like sports activities, going to games?
Yeah.
That's the one.
That's the one so that's why it's on the list, because
That's what they want to get rid of?
we can say within we can say within 72 hours that it's not gonna happen, and they can't do anything contractually. So those are all what they call extra trips.
That's the old co-curricular?
And no, to answer your question, we don't want to get rid of them.
No, we don't.
But they are on the list of things that we could, at this
Right,
point, still
they're
reduce.
just on there
Yeah.
as we could.
So get the parents to get them to their
To games, yeah.
It's the inequities that we've been struggling to correct.
Correct for the longest time, right.
Yeah, people who don't have cars that can drive.
Anytime you take
Way up
away
north.
access to these programs
You
for
lose
everybody, you lose kids who need them more than kids who can get
Yep.
there.
There, I do realize, and so Brenda, just verify this for me, but I did not realize this, but if there is, let's just say there's a baseball game and a lacrosse game on the same night, if we can only find one driver, one of those teams may be told to find their own transportation. I don't know that it's ever happened as of late, but it is a possibility already. So drivers do not have to take the run if they don't want to. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, we don't own any buses, do we?
We own all the buses. RNESU owns the buses.
Now, why not invest some money in getting our teachers, or maybe one or two or three of them, to get a CDL? A CDL isn't that expensive to get. I used to have a CDL, and you study to get the license, and you go to the DMV, $150 plus your medical, and you get a CDL Class B, and you can start driving these kids around.
Yeah. Brenda, you want to answer that question?
She doesn't.
I know. I know. That's why I wonder if there's something that, I understand your question.
That's by my control. We have advertised, we have banners, we have begged, we have pleaded, we have cried. We provide training. It's not quite as easy as that was just portrayed. But we can't compel somebody to take the job either.
And teachers don't have to take the job. They don't have to drive the buses if they don't want to. I mean, even if they had their CDL, would we require teachers to have certain training as well in order to drive our buses? I mean, I wouldn't think it would just be that they could.
Yes.
Drive
Absolutely.
Yes, and we do have some teachers who are substitute bus drivers.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if that answers your question. Okay, Paul.
So a lot of coaches
Yeah.
are talking about that these days because a lot of times we're waiting.
Can you speak up, Paul, because we really can't
A lot
hear
of
you.
coaches right now are talking about getting their CDLs because it's a great
That's great,
idea.
yeah. Good
idea, Paul.
Because we're waiting or games are getting
Right,
canceled.
right.
So that is good, and if there's funding there,
Yeah.
it's not too hard.
That's all you need is the funding just for that.
Yeah, I think the part is,
Right.
do I want the responsibility
Exactly.
of traveling with kids around?
Right.
If I could just interject for a minute, because I think I heard something that I want to just kind of pull us together for a minute. We have asked coaches if they might be interested in becoming CDLs, but we also have a master agreement we have to apply, and we have to be sensitive to. And that doesn't mean we can say, Coach, you are driving your kids. The master agreement outlines how additional bus routes for co-curricular, sports, field trips, everything, how it is assigned. And it's assigned by a rotation. So while we would love to see more people certified, and we would encourage coaches to be certified, even with that, we can't guarantee that we can say, you know, the basketball coach will always drive the basketball students or softball, et cetera, We have been struggling with drivers and having enough, so it is possible that going through and minding the master agreement, following the master agreement, the last category of people who are available to do extracurricular and co-curricular runs could be coaches if they were certified. So we would definitely encourage that, but it's not as simple as saying, hey, you're great, you're wonderful, you're the softball coach, and now you're the softball bus driver.
Baseball, sorry. Baseball.
Since we're on bus driving, so, you know, I'm going to a game the other day, and the driver, you know, we're having conversations, it's budget time, and it was expressed by the driver that there is a lot of times that, you know, they're held under a certain amount of hours, which is great, you know, we understand that's why, for reasons why, but there's a lot of times that our buses will transport 1 or 2 people to these off-site programs. Ken, is there a way to keep it more monitored and or maybe a cheaper vehicle? Because when you start running those buses on the road, that's a lot of money adding up, especially with diesel costs today. You know, or is it just, that's our bus, that's the vehicle we have, this kid's got to get there, let's get him there. Is there any thought going into the type of vehicle for those smaller, maybe individual or just a couple people that have to get somewhere?
Did you hear that, Brenda?
She said no.
Brenda, the question sort of is there any thought that goes into how you schedule bus drivers, bus runs, the actual size of the bus, if you are sending, say, just a couple of kids to the parent-child center? Like, how are those decisions made, and are they made sort of fiscally and responsibly?
Yes, of course, whenever possible. And that's not always possible. I think, first of all, it's important to understand that the standard large-size bus gives us the most flexibility for field trips and to and from school. So they are what we purchase the most often. A smaller bus really limits us. And they are not proportionately cheaper either in purchasing and or in operations. So I can appreciate and respect that it seems like it's wasteful to see a large bus, but the smaller buses get maybe 2 or 3 miles to the gallon more than the larger buses. And sometimes to have to pull a driver who might already be halfway to the parent-child center when they have to pick up a student and bring them would actually travel more to go and find a smaller bus to take that than head out from where they might be in Leicester. So yes, we pay attention to that very carefully, but it isn't quite as easy as it may seem.
Kevin?
I want to get back to the motion on the floor. I'm going to vote no, and I'm going to vote no because I don't think it's enough. I think $20,000 is going to get thrown back in our faces by the voters, and we have to address the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is we screwed up, and the voters aren't trusting us. And let me explain how we screwed up. We didn't examine the budget closely enough when there was time to amend it closely. We're now faced with a situation where the biggest things on this list are not filling positions that are open. That means we screwed up. That means that we didn't take the time and the close consideration necessary to take an overall look at the budget and do it right. Now, a lot of that's Montpelier's fault, but a lot of it's our fault. So we're in a position now where we just have to get something passed. So I'm going to vote no because I don't think it's going to pass. And if it fails tonight, I'm going to move that we cut by 3% because we have to show the voters that we're taking them seriously. But our real issue is that we need to be doing this in October. So instead of next year's budget, we're going to limp along here, we'll make cuts here and there. And by the way, for the 5 years I've been on this board, we've been told, it's not your job to bring out a microscope and look at things closely. And now we're talking about $20,000 here, $10,000 there, and we've all got our little, preferences about which things to cut. That's the wrong way to do it. So we got to talk about, in October, about the year after next budget, and we have to do that right. I think that the Brandon Select Board moving to have a budget committee that includes non-members of the board is something we need to consider. And I also think we need to look at our priorities. And I want to state my priorities clearly. We talk all the time here about protecting kids and doing the right thing for kids. Well, what's the mechanism to do that? In my opinion, it means supporting the teachers and paras in the classrooms with those kids to the max. So I share Brett's disappointment with the RNSU board. I'm on that board. I voted against that cut because, again, it wasn't enough. We need to cut people who are not facing the children in the classroom. And I'm going to be as specific as possible here because I think we've been dancing around this too much. I don't think we need a full-time communications director. I don't think we need a full-time safety director. I don't think we need senior teachers acting as coaches who aren't in front of children every day. We need to support the people in front of the children, the programs that help the children, including busing and all the other stuff. And if we're going to have to cut, and I want to say again, I wish we were spending another $60 million on things. We're not. If we're going to have to cut, and we are because the voters have insisted upon it, we need to protect the priorities that we set to protect the children, and that means administration has to diminish. So that's what I have to say about this. I'm going to vote no. We can talk about $4,000 here and $5,000 there as long as it takes, and we'll see what happens.
Brett?
Okay, I agree with a lot of what Kevin just said. I think as we're going through this process, we're all learning a lot. And I agree with the sentiment that we failed. I feel like every step of the way we've been a little bit behind. I give Fernanda a lot of credit. She called it months ago, saying sometimes we just need to issue a notice and hope that we can retain people. And we missed that. And we continue to miss it. So I guess the first question that I have of several is if we take a conservative route today and say we're good with the RNSU assessment reduction, trim a little bit off some other things, and the budget fails again, well then what is in front of us then? Are we going to have even less options to choose from? Are we in a hiring freeze right now? What happens if we go this route and it fails again?
Well, if you go this route and it fails again, you continue putting a budget forward until you have one, right? The 87% that people sort of quote, they sort of misinterpret, that sort of is your buying power, like the money that you can borrow to go ahead and fund yourself, which comes at a high cost. So you keep putting budgets forward. As a board, I would say that that's actually a really fair question, right? Like, so I would suggest that when the board does land on whatever number they land on and whatever positions are not a part of that budget, that if you're waiting until, so say you say, we don't want to cut a Neshobe teacher and a Lothrop teacher in the world language right now, but let's like hang on to it to make sure that our budget fails. At that point, the schools aren't going to be able to fill those positions anyways, so you might as well sort of reduce it. So at this point, a hiring freeze is where we are, but it's our hope and our expectation that once we get the number from the board, you sort of move forward to, like if the board says we don't want to cut those classrooms, that we would move forward to fill those classrooms because they're vacant right now. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and I think that's an important thing to talk about, right? Because if we, I don't know, how could we fill these positions? Because we don't know what's going to happen. And if we don't, then where are we going to end up? One more thing, I want to talk about the bus real quick too, right? Because something that struck me a little bit is we talk about inequities for our children, in equitable access to sports and things like that. Well, we don't even provide busing until a child gets to 7th grade. So why do we not care about equitable busing or access to sports when they're younger, but all of a sudden, when they get older, we do. So I think that's, I don't know, that's sort of a question that sort of stuck in my head.
Well, the younger kids are not in school-based stuff. They're in rec departments, so we want to provide.
But philosophically, that's not the question, right? I'm just
Okay,
saying.
but I want to verify that that's why.
Totally understand, right?
Okay.
But at some point, we have to make tough decisions, right? And I'm not saying that that's the right thing or the wrong thing to do. I'm just saying that we have to make tough decisions. And the other question that I guess I want to hear an answer for, that, because we do get selective information when we come in here, right? And I get it. You can't tell us everything. It would be overwhelming. And we're already half confused when we sit here anyway. But how many positions within the district are not under contract? Is every position under contract, or are there positions that are not?
No, there's a whole bunch on this that are up for.
No, I'm saying every position,
They're on this
everyone
list.
gets a contract,
They're on
because
this
not
list.
everyone is part of
Everybody
a
has
bargaining
gotten
unit.
a
Is that correct?
The ones that are on this massive list
Are the
of
ones who don't
potential-
have a contract.
Yeah.
We've showed you
They're
like the custodians and support staff paras are the last ones to go out. Those have also gone out. So
Okay, got it.
every open position, because again, we've been in a hiring freeze since the budget was defeated. We haven't filled any positions. So at this point, all contracts have been issued, and any openings that exist are because someone resigned a position, we didn't fill a position, someone retired a position. Those are sort of what are up there.
Yeah,
But
it's
there's
all in
also,
here.
there are,
Here, we got census.
It's not all in there.
well, wait a minute, but there are also non-union employees.
Yeah, but the
that-
question wasn't, are they a part, I thought the question wasn't, are they a part of a bargaining unit, but it's that, are they under contract? And the answer is yes.
Okay.
Everyone's been issued a contract that wasn't sort of a vacant position.
So let me ask another hard question then. If we decided that we need to eliminate a position that's under contract, what happens then?
So, if they are a part of a bargaining unit, that's a non-starter, right? Like, that's a no-go. If they're protected by statute, that's also a no-go. So, for instance, the superintendent, yeah, you can for sure fire me, but generally speaking, the superintendent is not someone that you can issue a contract and then take it away. Principals also have that protection.
Yeah.
Other positions don't. The way contract language sort of reads is that if they have not been notified that they will be reduced by April 1st, they're issued a contract. Within that contract, and again, I'm not suggesting this is good labor practice, nor would it bring anyone to ever want to work for RNESU, but does there exist in provision in many of the contracts a stipulation that you can terminate with 60-day notice? Yes. Again, that.
Companies lay off all the time.
I want to point out a couple things. And Brenda, correct me if I'm wrong, but our last 3 or 4 budgets that we've put forth have been less than a 7% increase in the last 3 or 4 years. Would that be correct?
I heard less than, but then I didn't hear less than less.
I want to know that all the budgets that we've put forth within the last 4 years have been a 7% or less increase for OVUU.
I would have to look that up, but it sounds very fair to say.
Okay.
I will tell you and remind you again that our spending, even on the original town meeting budget, is $900 per pupil average, below the state average spending.
Right, well, and I don't even care about that at the moment, but my point is that I think, and you can all tell me that I'm wrong, but I think that one of the messages that has gotten out into our community is that we were looking at a 13 or 14% increase because our expenses were going up 11.71%. But yet, if you looked at our tax rate, which is what we normally tell everybody at the end, was only going up 5%, 5.66% at our last budget vote that was defeated. And now Brenda is telling me that, or told us, that this next budget is a 4.4% increase at this point.
The equalized taxes.
What?
To the equalized tax.
To the equalized, right. That's without CLA. You cannot include CLA. We have no That's a Montpelier issue, and that is something that we as a board and you guys as constituents have no control over.
It's not a Montpelier issue, it's a every homeowner issue.
Well, it's a Montpelier issue because they need to do something about the fact that, our taxes are going up exponentially. So if I say that our tax rate's going from $1.20 to $1.25, you guys are like, oh, that's not bad. I mean, I wouldn't think overall that that's a bad increase. However, when we include the CLA, all of a sudden your increase is going from $1.25 here in Brandon to $1.70. And that is a huge increase. One that you wouldn't be expecting and one you don't know how to calculate. You talked about transparency. I can't tell you about how the CLA affects your tax rate because that's not something that we do here on this board. I mean, we can think about it, sure, but then if we want to get down to a 3 or 4% increase, including the CLA, we're cutting everything that you see on all this paperwork, and that's impossible. We can't do that to our kids. There's no way that we can do that to our kids.
Well, it depends on what your property value is too, right?
So when Fernanda talks about cut, the RNESU cut $150,000 or 176 and we're getting 150 of that reduction and saying, okay, we're going to cut board development because that's not going to affect kids. Isn't that what we want? So that brings us down to, I don't even know what that is. Is that a 3.4% increase over the last budget? I don't know. But that is, I think, sustainable for all of us as taxpayers. The next part of the issue is what happens at Montpelier. And everybody knows what their prebate is, or they should be able to figure out what that state payment is on their property taxes based on their previous tax return, right? Legislature decided to do an additional 13.5% increase in that payment with the yield bill, which Governor Scott is now saying he is probably going to veto. So we can't even tell you that payment that you might already know what it is going up 13.5% because Governor Scott may veto it and there may not be enough votes to override the veto when the legislature comes back in June. So when we're looking at what we want for a budget and what is transparent or what we have for, I don't want to start cherry picking positions. I don't think that's fair. And I'll be honest. The Director of Safe Schools is grant funded. Is that even if we cut that program, it's not going to come off of your tax bill because it's grant money. So you got to think about those things, and some of those things you don't know, but that is a definite. So when that grant runs out, then yeah, you're right. We probably don't need a Director of Safe Schools, but they've done a lot towards keeping our schools safe and implementing lots of different things that people have seen in our schools for safety precautions. And as far as who we need or who we don't need, we have an outgoing superintendent who felt that we needed it at the time. The next superintendent that comes in, or the interim superintendent who comes in, may have a completely different view on that. And I don't want to cut their knees off now to say, oh, well, we thought you didn't need it, when they come in and go, oh, yeah, we really do. No, but I think we all have to think about that because you're acting as if this is the last, we have to cut $1 million or nobody's going to vote for this. I think it's about getting out the right information. Did you know it was only a 4% increase in your tax rate?
We didn't know hardly any information. I think that's the problem.
Well, okay,
But
so...
Lori, it isn't though. We can't pretend like the CLAs don't exist. If we look at the number that
And control the CLA.
Okay.
But also, I need to answer your question. Look, I was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where 47% of people drop out, okay? It's horrible out there. 49th in education. Hiring freeze right before we moved, about 7 years ago. So this was pre-COVID. Same exact situation that we're seeing here. And you know what happens? Hiring freeze, no one wants to pass the school budget. The governor, she in Santa Fe, what she does, okay, fine, we'll fill the classroom with National Guard. The National Guard go and babysit the poor kids in the classroom. And now, instead of paying out for education, we have to pay taxes for defense. Is that what you want? They're gonna get your money anyways. Might as well do it for education.
So
it's definitely not what I'm advocating for.
Let's not become into New Mexico.
What I'm saying is, if you look at the number,
But
okay,
you
it was
can't think
over
about
10%. If you take last year what we spent, what we were gonna propose on the last vote, look at those numbers,
Okay, but-
10%. So CLAs do exist and they do matter, okay?
Well, yes, but I
And
also want to say one
also-
thing. Nope, I want to
Hold
say
on.
one thing. Nope, one thing. I want to say that when you're looking at what what our expenses are over the last year, you also have to take into account the change in the way they count students, because that is part of the.
Yes, and we increased our tax capacity. So we should have been able to increase the amount of money coming in with zero impact to our taxpayers, in theory.
In theory, maybe.
Against CLAs. But what I want to know is, on this list of available money, where's the list of positions that we have a 60-day notice option on?
I don't think we should even think about going down that road.
Well, they aren't teachers, are they?
Well, they could be. They're not teachers, no, but.
And they're RNESU, they're not OVU.
And that's exactly why I was disappointed that RNESU took action.
But I don't feel that we can go down that road. It's like I said, we have an outgoing superintendent, we have an incoming superintendent. I feel that we need to wait until that person comes in and looks at our processes and
And
says.
I get that you feel that way, Lori, but 61% of our voters don't feel that way.
I don't know that that's true
I
either.
don't think they're voting on that particular issue, the incoming superintendent. I don't think that's what they're voting on.
I think
Listen,
that,
They're
I
not
think
looking
that
at it through that lens.
Every single one of us is here because we want to support our schools, right? No one is here because they want to slash school spending. We're all here to support our schools. We need to now find a way to best do that. And every single one of us is being asked to step outside of our comfort zone because we don't want to cut school spending. Who is on this board for that purpose? I don't think anybody. But now we have to make a tough choice. And 170,000 is not going to get it done.
I think it might, if we get the right information out. We didn't really put out any information. We haven't had to put out information on our own budgets in the last 3 or 4 years. When have we ever actually gone, I'll get to you in just a second. We haven't actually gone out and said to the community anything about our budgets. We've just put forth the budget and said, here. And 9 times out of 10, or every 3 out of 4 years, except when it's a presidential election, like this year, it goes through no problem. And I also think one of the reasons why our budget went down is because Brandon, there was so much brouhaha over their budget that everybody who came out to vote no for that budget just blindly voted no for our budget as well. And that is one of the reasons why we divorced. Notice that they had a budget vote today and we were not there with them. So I think you need to think about all of the other external things. It's not just people out there saying you have to slash money out of your budget. I don't think that's what they're asking. I think some of them are just asking to know the information, to say, okay, yep, our tax rate is going up. I don't know what it is. Let's just say it's 4% right now. And I say to you, yep, our tax rate's going up to $1.25, or it's going to be less than that now even with these cuts. And then, but we can't control the CLA. And that is where you need to contact all your legislatures. You need to contact Governor Scott. And you need to say, look, pass the yield bill because we need that additional 13.5% credit for all of our low-income families who need that extra money in their payment towards their property taxes.
Lori,
Which is 62% of the voters already.
Natalie's hands raised, and just as a FYI, Brandon's budget passed 449 to 270.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful news. Natalie. Oh, wait a minute. Natalie, hold on. I told Barbara first.
Well, it's on the subject of the town vote. I can't find the graphic right now, but I think it's been on social media, Instagram. There's been this wonderful infographic.
Yeah.
An amazing infographic. I think Heather Nelson.
Heather Nelson put them on.
Heather Nelson did it?
Yes, and Heather Nelson is the one who created them. She did provide them to me when I saw her on Sunday night to tell me that we could use it for what we needed for ourselves. And excellent. So you also mentioned that you had just come from a place where
the Harwood School District is on their 3rd budget vote, and they were at the farmers market in Waitsfield, and they had a little handout, and on one side it said this is who we are, and it had very little, lots of visuals but some information, and then on the other side it said we're as mad as you are, and this is the situation with the state right now, and this is how we can act together. And they were in a booth talking to anybody who was coming by. And I think that that was really a clear, succinct message. I don't know what's going to happen. They vote on May 30th.
Natalie?
First, I guess I'll just respond to what Barbara said. I agree. That's what I was saying the last time, is that we need a graphic that's really easy that people can understand how much they're going to pay as far as their taxes go. Going back to what Brett was saying, to be honest, am getting a little tired of hearing about what we should have done and could have done, and instead, I would love to hear your solution. You know, what are the things you're willing to cut? Because, to be honest, I'm willing to make the hard choices. I'm willing to go through this list right now and say yes or no to each one of these reductions. So I really appreciate we not have the back and forth about, like, things the way they should have done. But right now, we got to be talking about solutions and where we're going to go moving forward.
So, where are we going?
No, I made that.
Yes, we did make that motion, or we can vote on that motion, see what happens. But I don't know where everybody's head is at. I mean, I really do truly feel that we need to just get the misinformation out there. I really feel like this is not an unsustainable increase. I mean, if you think about it from the very beginning, as Brenda said, we've already cut. Even with these, if we did the 170, we'd be at almost $1 million right there. And you want $1.5 million. That's what you told us. So, I'm just saying.
Lori, if all of our houses were valued at 100%, our rate would be much higher, right? The total number is the total number.
But we can't do that because that is a cyclical issue that comes up, and you cannot budget and pull and push.
CLAs are like the most confusing thing that's ever come anywhere.
And completely not from us.
Right.
And
But
the
they're a
people
real thing.
who are mostly impacted by the CLA, they're also getting relief. It's just that they don't put the two together.
Well, it's hard to put the two together.
It's very hard to put the two together, but they are getting relief. So we can't account for the relief they get because we don't know their income sensitivity, and we can only say this is the CLA in your town. I live in Goshen,
One of the highest rates.
right? I mean, I cannot know what that's going to do, but I do know that 72% of our people are getting relief from that CLA. That is completely out of control, how much relief they get and how much it is. We cannot budget responsibly considering CLA.
Well, I don't think we can pretend like it doesn't exist either. I mean, it's a real thing.
I think we need to let our legislators know. I think we need to ask our communities to reach out to them and let them know that the way that we fund education is not working anymore. I think we all know that that is not working.
Or
Yeah.
Do you believe that the Vermont excess spending threshold being paused until 2029 is part of your strike right now?
I don't know. Do I? Ask me that question again, sorry.
So if the threshold makes all schools accountable for their spending.
Sure.
Even like really well.
Oh, right, yeah, yes.
And then under the Cap 60, we have to be equitable, so it would create a pool of money, and then that would be distributed
Yeah.
to unfortunate communities.
Sure.
When you have the threshold on pause from 2022 to 2029, where's that pool now? And all these communities are having a strike. And actually, this is because of an 8th grade graders research paper, which he didn't want to submit.
Oh.
But I
Nice.
think, like, he found this in his sources, so. You want this, Brad?
Good question.
I mentioned that at our negotiation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Learning all kinds of stuff from this report.
Yeah.
Last comment before we vote.
I don't know
Hi,
that you're
by
going to
me.
be the last comment.
No, no,
Oh,
by me.
okay, all right.
Unless-
I know, well, I know, I'm
Unless it's
sorry.
a beauty.
I also have the numbers from Brenda if you want.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that. Well, can we let her, she did have her hand raised
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. So there we go, thank you.
Oh my God, I forget what I'm going to say because I like get pushed on. First of all, I don't agree we messed up, honestly. Come on. We've worked hard on this. Brenda knows what she's talking about. She tells us the information, we make decisions. We're not idiots. We didn't screw up. This is a weird year. Stuff happens. So we're dealing with it. But I don't like the idea that we're incompetent and don't know what we're doing, and I resent that. Okay, that's that. Another thing is, you talk about the voters have spoken and we have to like listen to them. Well, there's a lot of voters who show up at these meetings who totally disagree with voting down these things and want to see us support students. And I think we need to be sure we represented them too. I don't want to give so much power just because people can be negative and go out and vote about it, because why? Why? We hear why people are wanting us to support the schools. They come and they tell us. If people just go to the voting booth and say no and don't bother to tell us why, then why are we giving them so much extra voice? There's a suggestion in here, start cutting all athletics, extracurricular activities, or whatever you need to. The school system is already failing. It's just a glorified daycare environment where kids are not learning. What? Are we listening to this? No, that's garbage. We are not on this board to listen to people who think that way. I'm done.
Peace out.
Peace out.
All right, there we go. All right, Kevin?
Well, I think we are on the board to listen to people because we have to. I want to emphasize again that the root of our issues are process problems. And I'm sorry, Barbara, I think we screwed up. We've been riding a wave of COVID money, and it's gone. And now we live in an environment where there's a lot of anxiety about inflation. People are scared. People are worried. And we have to be cognizant of that. So, you know, the other discussion we're having is what can we get away with? Can we cut by $20,000? Is that going to be enough? Can we convince people to vote yes? My guess is no, that it needs to be a larger number than that, but that's just my opinion. We'll see what happens. You know, if that gets voted down tonight, we'll go to a larger number. If it gets passed tonight and then voted down by the public, we'll be back again in a meeting or two. So what's going to happen is what's going to happen. But what's going to happen beyond this immediate budget is what we need to be worried about. I think we've been screwing up. I think we need a much deeper dive into the budget. We get these presentations that are largely, you know, they're all PowerPoint and largely like diagrams. I think the message is what we're really getting is that we need to do a better job with that. So, and that will help us regain the trust of the people who are saying, well, the school is just a glorified daycare.
Go ahead. Beeson.
Thank you. He's back in. So, another point that troubles me often, some of the comments, is that we are making this public statement, or you're making this public statement that we're like incompetent school board people. And I don't think that, and I don't want that being the message we're sending out there. We're not. We are not incompetent. We are short-staffed on the board right now. We're supposed to be 13, and we're 8. We're compromised greatly by not having a full board. And that is not inconsequential when it comes to these discussions. You're nodding. Yay.
I think that's true.
The other thing is, I swear, to make this organization function, which I think it actually does very well, I mean, you have people wanting to work in this district, wanting to come to this district, wanting to be superintendent of this district, you know, because they like us, because we are doing something right. So what are we doing right? We have a very functional, like, administration. We have, you know, great superintendent, finance manager, we've had a wonderful special services coordinator. We have lots of really, we've had senior staff who know what they're doing. So we trust them because that's what you do in an organization. You monitor and you make sure you're in compliance, and then you let them do their job. And you don't sit here and second guess them when a vote fails. You say, well, back to the drawing table. Not, oh, well, you know, we're told, you know, PowerPoint presentation, or like, this is bad. It's like, no, it's not bad. It's, we have to craft the message better. We have to get out to people and say, here is why we're doing what we do. Here is why we didn't cut more money. Because we really care about our students. Our students are telling us, please don't take away our programs. Please don't take away our busing. please don't get rid of our teachers. We have wonderful programs here, right? Right, yes. And when you start chipping away at those things, because where are you gonna chip? You're gonna chip away at Spanish. I will fight to my death that we have secondary language in schools. It's really, really important to me. But Kevin will fight to the death about tech ed because it's important to him, and we're both right. Neither one of us is wrong on that. So, you have to have all of those things for all of the population. And trying to peel it all away makes it a ruinous situation, and it is so much cheaper, I'm gonna say it, it's so much cheaper to fund schools than jails.
So if we don't have a good education, we're all going to jail?
We're all
Okay.
going to jail.
No. I want to hear from you, since you have your hand raised, and then I want to hear from Brenda, and then we'll come back to you.
I kind of wanted to add to what Barbara had to say, not by her, but there was a comment earlier that companies make layoffs all the time. I don't think that looking at the school district from that angle as we just need to make layoffs, to me, budget goals is right. It's not like we're firing workers, which is awful as it is, but that's chipping away at our future. And I feel like looking at it from that angle is the best perspective to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Thank you, future President McLaughlin. Okay, so what did Brenda?
Brenda was just trying to give you information based on what you had asked for equalized rates. FY22 was $1.36. FY23 was down to $1.28. FY24 down to $1.20. FY25 town meeting defeated rate $1.32, which is still below FY22's. The revote defeated was 126, or 4.4% over fiscal year 24.
Okay, and if we look at if we cut this 170, what that new fiscal rate would be?
4.4. No, wait, with the
4.4 is
new one?
before it.
Yeah, with the new one. Sorry, I was just curious.
It's half a point, I think it's.
If you cut the
170, yeah.
Brenda.
I would say it's
So if you were to cut the 150,000 plus the 20, you think that's what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Remember that 1 cent is 210,000, so 170 divided by 210 is about 0.8 of 1 cent. So depending on rounding, would round up to 1 cent.
So it would be $1. It would be $1.18. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's the most recent one was $1.25.7. So taking that, so instead of that $1.25.7 going to $1.26, you take out 0.8 of that, so it would be $1.24.9. So it would go $1.25.
It would be $1.25. All right. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. So $1.25, which is still less than 2 years ago. Okay. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Your turn. Sorry.
Yeah, and first off, Barbara, I'm not trying to say that we're incompetent at all. I can speak for myself. I know that I am incompetent, but I can't speak for anyone else on the board. But I'll tell you a little bit of why I make that comment, right? Because the entire premise of how our system works, right? It's all a series of checks and balances. And one of the reasons that we love Kristen is because she cares more about student outcomes than getting votes, right? And we talk about all the problems that we had with Jean, and a lot of that was because she took some of that stuff into account, and we didn't like it. Because we're all here because we care about the student's outcome, right? So the problem has now become that there hasn't been any checks and balances, because what we wanted and what Kristen wanted in administration, I'm not picking on Kristen specifically, were aligned too much. So when I say that we screwed up, I say that in my mind thinking we probably should have been more critical. And that's not where we're coming from. That's not where we want to be. But the checks and balances have swung out of whack. And here we are having this conversation because the voters said, hey, we don't really like what you're presenting.
Yes, but are we out of alignment? I don't understand. You mean in like student outcomes, like in their scores? Or
yes, so one of the reasons why I got on this board initially was because I didn't like Gene giving back money to the taxpayers, right? When we had surpluses. Going through this process, I'm starting to understand why that's not such a terrible idea.
Wait a minute, what, you didn't like Gene giving money back to the taxpayers?
So when the COVID year happened, there was a tremendous surplus, right? Because we didn't have school.
Well, that was a board decision, you realize that, right?
Right, recommended by administration.
Well, no, well, actually, it was Barry Varian who made that decision, and we went along with it, so, but it wasn't Jean. I mean, it was, she said we had that money, and we decided to take some of it and put it in
As long as we have
funds
policy
and-
governance, then, in my opinion, the buck stops with the superintendent.
No, we voted on that. I
We voted
totally
on it. It was
remember
a board
voting on
decision.
that.
You should go back and look at the board
Absolutely.
decision.
Option
And
A,
it wasn't directed by Gene. He wanted to give money back to the taxpayers, so we did that. But we also put money into our facility funds as well.
The overall point that I'm trying to make is that
Well, just don't blame people without, you know.
I'm just trying to provide some context of how we ended up at the position of saying that I think that we screwed up. And that's that I don't think that there's been a series of checks and balances. I think that we're all here because we want what's best for our kids and we wanted to support the budget, so we did. And then it failed.
All right, so, Natalie, any more questions?
Her hand's not raised.
I know.
I'll just make, you said Natalie, right?
I did say Natalie.
Okay. I'll just make a final comment that we did what we had to do during COVID because our kids were in crisis. Our kids are still coming out of that crisis and we still need to fund them. And we've lost funding through the state. So we could either not help our kids in crisis now or continue to fund them. That's my last comment.
Okay. Any other comments from anybody I can actually see? Otherwise, we're gonna go ahead and vote. Okay? All right, I'm not seeing any.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Wow, okay.
I want to apologize if earlier I came across about the off-site facilities is taken away from our kids, because I don't want to do that. I was just thinking, when we're trying to make budget cuts, that off-site facilities cost a lot of money to run. And there was a way to look at to try to make some reductions and bring our community back home to their places so they can be part of our community. Because I coach them about that stuff, so I apologize if it came across from taking from children.
Any other comments? Okay. So the motion on the table is that the OVUU budget that was presented, the second budget that was presented and failed, be reduced by an additional $170,250. Motion was made by Fernandez, seconded by Barbara. All those in favor signify by saying aye and put your hands up so I can,
Point of order.
yeah.
We're not reducing it by an extra $150,000 because our NESU already did that.
No, but it flows through to OVUU, so that the 150,000 is RNESU's portion that comes over to OVUU. So that does reduce the OVUU budget. When we vote, okay, so.
One big cumulative budget.
So RNESU's budget, whatever it is, 85% of it roughly is in our budget, OVUU, right? So that $150,000, or the $176,000 that got cut last week from RNESU, 26,000 of that went to BUU to reduce their budget.
Yes.
And 150,000 came here to reduce this budget. So it
Yes.
is actually reducing the budget that we are presenting to the community.
We have to vote on that, accepting that reduction, is that what?
Yeah, well, we are reducing it by $170,000. So yes.
Yeah, even if you decide not to cut anything else, you still have to accept the 150 because you still have to create a new
got it,
budget.
thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, all of those that approve that, please raise your hand or say aye. Actually, do both.
Aye.
3,
Natalie.
4. Okay, all of those opposed?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. So it passes. Okay. So we will present a budget that is reduced by $170,250.
And a lot of information.
And with lots and lots of information, I promise. And I will be looking to you and adding you as a friend and be asking you to help me out there. So
Happy to.
All right, well, that's great. So
Yeah, I guess that is the request, is that we all have to go out there and help get that passed, because I think without
I
a
think
community
it's important for
effort,
the
we were not
community
going to do
know
it.
what you're willing to put on the option table.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that this, like, when I saw this list today, I was
you like
shocked.
freaked out, right? Yeah.
Yes, and I think that if they knew what could come next, it would help change some minds.
Yeah, which is the path that Slate Valley is going. They have their fourth vote.
But they didn't reduce anything.
They didn't, but in the presentation that Debbie shared that they have now, they say, here's what this budget is saving, and here are all of the other things that come next, right? Like if this sort of, so not as a threat, but just as a reality. Here are the things that aren't nailed down.
Yeah. Yeah.
You said that we need to get a lot of information out. No, I think it really needs to be that streamlined.
Concise.
The one that,
Yeah.
that Heather made, it
Yep.
really needs to be streamlined.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, but-
Absolutely.
Not a lot
But
of-
when we see misinformation, like I saw lots of misinformation on Front Porch Forum, and I did not respond because I didn't want to get into the fray. I'm going to have to jump into the fray. So, and I will from now on. And if I see it on Facebook, I will probably do it there too. So, when you find out that my house is surrounded by people with guns, please come save me.
Lori, so Brenda does have.
You just need bigger guns.
Okay, yeah, just a minute. Yeah. So, Brenda, go ahead. And then you. Did you have your hand up?
Just a quick question.
Okay. Brenda?
Thanks. So I want to give you that final number for the budget.
Yep.
26,808,822.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So, we are going to move on. Our next order of business is the OVU Summer 2024 Facility Fund request.
We need to vote on.
Actually-
Oh, is it 8 o'clock?
8:13.
Oh, look at that.
16.
Yep, we probably should. So, then we'll back up. We do need to vote to extend the meeting probably an hour.
All right, well, I guess I move that
Okay, who's second?
reluctantly.
Yes, I understand. Thank you guys very much for being here. Is there a second? You're seconding to make the motion? Okay. All those in favor of extending the meeting an hour, please signify by saying aye. Okay.
And are you doing your warning and are you?
Oh, well, we'll get there. I was just going by the agenda at the moment. So, let's get this stuff out of the way, then we'll do the warning. Okay, so the OVU Summer 2024 Facility Fund request. Is that you, Brenda? Okay, go for it.
Kristen, would you mind projecting it for everyone online?
What?
Mainly me.
Wait, I have this?
Yeah, it's in the packet.
It's in the packet.
Yeah, I got it.
Page 6.
I got it. Here we go.
Oh, this is the fund balance.
Is this it?
It's the so this is summer projects, yeah, summer fund
Based on the
request.
fund balance.
Yeah.
Okay. No new money.
Right. So it's anything.
You're not. Is this? Oh, summer.
What's G?
Oh, Brenda, she should stop having so many
2 is next
attachments.
General fund, so they're gonna put it in general fund.
Summer. Got it.
There you go.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so, Rich has met with all of the principals and, the head custodians in each of the buildings. Couple of information, the estimated fund balance in our facility fund after the completion of our 2023 projects is $2,039,000. We are requesting a smaller request this year requesting a total of $377,700. You can see that list there by school. And then if you scroll down, just to remind you what the priorities are, if it's a priority 1, it meets the definition of a fixed asset. It's an improvement in the building, extends the life of the building and/or grounds. And if it's a GF, that means it will happen and be funded with the general fund. And if it's a 2 or a 3, a number higher than that, then it's something that would come in future years. So many of these things, there's some notes there on the side. They do include quotes with some contingency, because sometimes when you get into fixing things, you are surprised. I'm not sure if you want me to read through all of this or not. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you keep going down, to the very end, this last page, this is the projects that we started last summer, so the summer of 2023, how much the board approved, the expenditures that happened in last fiscal year, what was available or still left to spend, and what was spent this year, and where we expect to end. So that's just a little bit more just FYI. We do expect not to spend as much as we had anticipated, and that has been added into the estimated facility balance at $2,039,000 on the very top.
Yes, Brent.
Brenda, do you happen to know what was the surplus from last year? Or is that number somewhere on here and I'm just not seeing it?
You mean the surplus from the budget that went into the facility fund? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because if I recall, we took a certain amount and put it into the after school program.
Right, we did a percentage.
And whatever was left went into the facility
fund, yes.
Just curious what the number was.
Yeah, I don't know if you have, do you have that handy?
I don't have that handy. I can look that up.
Okay. She's at a conference, so she's not actually in our office.
She's missing a Sea Dog baseball game right now. Just telling you.
She is, yes, I believe.
I don't know if she has it readily.
I'm sure she has it readily at her. Are there questions about what's on the list while you're, so it's anything with a 1 that is going to be done this summer, or the plan is to have it done this summer?
Tunnel.
Yeah, they've been talking about that tunnel forever.
Forever. And Chad and I just drove by the school and we're like, oh my God, they haven't replaced the tunnel yet?
Nope. Hey, they got rid of that awful blue tarp and the brown one, so it didn't look so bad.
I know.
Reinvest 73,000 of savings from 23.
73,000 went into it?
That was unspent.
Okay.
We anticipate a surplus this year?
No.
I hope not, to be honest with you. Because I know at Lothrop, our PTO has had to pay for busing for field trips, so I certainly hope there's not a surplus this year.
They had to pay for, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you reinvested last summer at your June 20th meeting, 73,200 of savings, because some things were covered by ESSER, some things were under bid, and some used surplus food service funds for a freezer, condenser, things like that.
So 73,000 then.
So what is the question?
So the question is there, do you have any questions about what's on this list for summer projects? Because that's what, it's anything with a 1 or a GF. You said also with a GF that would be coming out of the general fund?
Already budgeted.
Right, it's already budgeted from this budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not the budget we're putting forth, but the budget that 23-24's budget.
Already budgeted, right?
So last year, the board authorized transferring 283,000, well, they authorized a percentage, but the amount that we actually transferred into the facility fund last year, again, already included in that 2 million number, was $283,854.
And the 73.
So essentially, we're taking that money and we're funding the summer project, plus a little bit more.
Just was curious if we're ahead or behind.
All right, I'm not hearing any questions, so otherwise I would entertain a motion to accept the facility fund requests.
I move that we accept the
So
facility.
Fernanda's making the motion.
Second.
Barbara's making a second. If there's no other discussion.
I just want to say that I'm always in favor of increasing this. This is probably the wrong year to do it, but we still have, I've been screaming for 5 years that we need more funding in tech ed and Moose Lamoo, and the glacier's melting a little, it is, but it needs to melt a lot faster. But I'm not going to move to spend more money this year because of the circumstances.
Look at that into the future.
Well, that is a discussion that continues to happen between those teachers and Michael.
Okay.
So, all of those in favor of the facility fund requests, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Okay, facility funds passes.
Do you want to go back to the warning?
Do you guys want to go back to the warning? It sounds like they want to go back to the warning. So, let's go ahead and do the warning for, do you know when we don't know when the budget vote will be yet, because we have to talk to all of the, town clerks?
Well, you generally say when you're hoping, and then we confirm with the clerks.
Okay, all right.
What's a good day?
Tuesday. Tuesday's a good day. Has to be 30 days from the date, or doesn't matter?
Nope.
All right. I want to open my calendar.
Before June, because then everybody goes away.
Well, I think yeah, so, what if we said June 11th, which is a Tuesday?
The day before the end of the school year?
Hey, we know everybody's here.
Maybe.
Either that or we go out further. I don't think you want to do it any sooner. The 11th or the 18th, I think, are dates. Do you guys have a preference? Budget vote, June 11th or June 18th? They're both Tuesdays.
Go for the 11th.
I think we should try to stay out of summer.
So the 11th?
Go for the 11th.
Okay. So we're going to try for June 11th. The budget warning consists of spending of $26,808,822. Am I missing anything in the warning that we need to include in it, Brenda, other than the amount?
Date of your informational
You
meeting.
need the informational meeting date.
Okay, we're
You
getting.
could do it,
It is
we
our next-
generally don't do the day before the meeting because
We have a
it's usually town meeting, but you could do Monday, June 10th.
When did Barstow decide last night to do theirs? June 11th and June 4th? Did I just make those dates up?
I think Barstow decided June 6th at 6 for the informational meeting.
Yes.
And they are voting on June 10th, right?
Okay.
On Monday, not Tuesday? Okay.
Correct.
All right,
So you don't have to vote at the same time, it's different polls.
could we have our informational meeting before our meeting on the 4th?
I'm gone. Brenda, can you do it? Debbie's going to that meeting.
Well, I mean, we could do it on a different night, but I'm just wondering if we had
board meeting.
if we started our meeting at 5 o'clock and ended at 6:30 or so, or we could pause at 6:30 and have the informational meeting and then go back to the rest of the board meeting.
We just do the informational meeting at 5?
People are at work, or just coming out of work, so I think it makes sense to have our informational meeting at 6:30 to give them time to get there if they're coming.
You could have your board meeting from
But
5
we
to
could start our
6:30.
meeting, we could start our meeting at 5 and then pause at 6:30 for the informational meeting.
I like that.
Are you okay with that? Yes, no? Maybe?
Sorry, what was the date?
The
The
4th.
4th.
That's our meeting of our next meeting.
At 6:30, you said?
Yes, that would be the informational meeting, and our board meeting would start at 5.
And do you want virtual and in person?
Yep. Although, yeah, and then they both can ask questions, yeah. We're
all
not gonna
that-
be voting on anything.
The joint meeting, the OVBU.
No, it's OVU, 5 o'clock, starts at 5. At
Oh,
6:30.
but was that the date?
Yes, that's the date of
Oh.
the joint meeting. That's when, sorry. Yeah.
That's right, forgot about that. Okay. Well, then we gotta have an informational meeting on a different date.
Although that's not, the joint meeting's not on Melinda's calendar yet. You could probably change that meeting, Lori.
What, the BUU, the joint one?
Why can't we do the 10th?
No, you can, oh,
Oh, because the BUU meeting is that night, and we want our superintendent at our meeting as well.
no, the Barstow board meetings, the Barstow meeting's not June 10th.
Oh, that's when their voting is the 10th.
Yeah.
Well, we can do it on, we can do it on the 10th.
6:30?
All right, so we're
Actually, it's
changing our
6.
informational meeting to June 10th, 6:30. And voting on the 11th, yep. Okay,
Always at 6.
all right.
June 10th is a Monday.
Fresh on people's mind.
We had good questions last time.
Yes. Okay, all right. Anything else that we have to have in that, warning?
I mean, I could start it, but I have some.
It's okay. Is there anything else we need in the morning other than the amount, the date of the informational meeting, and the date of the?
And that you are allowing virtual and in-person participation. People are allowed to ask questions from
Yep.
both.
Yes. Okay. Has anybody started that motion yet? Was that what Fernanda was doing?
Move.
Okay, so you are moving that our budget will be $26,808,822, that our informational meeting will be on June 10th at 6:30 at Otter Valley. We will be voting on June 11th at the various polls, and that at the informational meeting, we will allow for in-person and Zoom questions.
That is what I'm moving.
Awesome.
I second.
And Barbara's seconding it, even more awesome. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Warning.
Yeah, whatever.
All right.
Oh, just a FYI.
Yes?
It's for Lothrop's graduation is June 10th at 6 p.m. So you might struggle, you might make some Lothrop parents frustrated, just saying. You're going to struggle at that time of year to not hit something.
I don't think, did you say Barstow is the 10th?
The 6th.
Lothrop is the 10th?
I wasn't making things up, Leah.
Which one is, when is Barstow's?
Barstow's the 11th.
Of course it is.
Okay, but, so Barstow has its informational meeting on the 6th. You want to do it on the 6th?
Well, we can't do it on the 6th because Barstow.
Yes, we
has
need
their-
to divide and conquer. It means that, yes.
Oh boy.
It's far from ideal. Huh? No, voting doesn't have to be on Tuesday. You could switch. You could do a Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
I'm not going to be here.
The 12th.
Just remember Wednesdays, half-day, final day of school.
Yeah.
That might be hard for parents. It might be like, yeah.
Well, I suppose we could have our informational meeting on the 5th, which is Wednesday. And vote on the 11th, which is Barstow's graduation, and that would not affect any of the OVUU parents, I hope.
Can you do the 5th?
Yes.
Brenda, can you do the 5th? Debbie, can you do the 5th?
Everybody? 5th instead? I know, I'm sorry.
What are we doing now?
Informational meeting on the 5th, not the 10th. Well, because we don't want to mess up Lothrop's graduation.
Okay, but whose graduation is on the 5th? Come on.
No one.
No one.
They don't start until the 6th with Neshobe.
Special concert?
Nope.
Nope.
Linda's gonna add this to the calendar, right?
Yep.
So what time are we talking about on the 5th?
6:30.
It's usually at 6, Lori.
All right, fine, 6.
Just saying, for consistency's sake.
Okay.
6.
So on
6.
Wednesday, June 5th at 6
6
o'clock.
o'clock.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
6 o'clock. That's what I'm always.
All right. Can I move on now?
Well, did that pass?
Yeah, everybody said yes. That changed.
But you amended it.
All right, all those in favor, June 5th.
Aye.
There we go.
I'll second your
motion. Yeah.
6th and the 11th, 5th at 6 p.m.
All right, after-school programming, Boys and Girls Club contract proposal.
Sorry, that was super loud. Brenda! Oh, Natalie's hands are, or was she voting?
Yeah, Natalie, go
Was she
ahead.
voting?
I think that we need a contract that's about as good as the one that we're doing for the Fox group. Just from my own experience, looking at MOUs all the time. Or at the very least, we should have a liability and indemnification clause in the Boys and Girls Club.
She's saying that she wants a couple things added to the contract.
I'm actually surprised I didn't catch that. But yes, we can definitely add that. As a licensed childcare, they have to provide insurance, so we can add insurance clauses and indemnification.
So the Boys and Girls Club, we do not have a coordinator anymore for after-school programming. And
Yeah, I just think that it should be as good an agreement as the Fox Hollow Forest one.
and so Brenda
If not better.
was already in negotiations with the Boys and Girls Club to take them over. They would still be mainly staffed with our people. They would just take over the administration part of it, I believe. Did you have other questions, Natalie, or did you just not put your hand down?
No, that's it.
Okay. Other questions regarding the after-school programming, Boys and Girls Club? For those, there had been questions 2 weeks ago when we talked about this. Just as a refresher, that it will still probably be staffed with the same people that run our current programs. They would just be taking over administration, correct?
That's the hope.
That is the hope. Okay. Is this just a one-year contract too? Yes? Yes. Okay.
Do we still have the STARS program for evaluation of these types of programs? Do we know?
What was the question?
The STARS
STARS
program.
licensing.
Yeah, we still need stars, yeah.
We
Yeah,
still,
they've
do
actually-
we know,
they've
do we know
actually
the rating?
Sort of revisited that at the state level and shifted all of the qualifications and things like that.
Okay.
All of our childcare centers are having to go through that process.
Through that process of STARS? Okay.
Okay. Oh, Kevin, sorry.
We had some concerns expressed about this the last time we talked about it by our Pittsford representatives and by people from Pittsford. I just want to know if they feel like those issues have been resolved.
I think you're talking about the Fox Forest one, not about the after-school
Oh,
program.
excuse me, sorry.
Okay.
No
No?
question.
But yeah.
No, but there was somebody who talked
There
about
were
some
concerns
and
about-
some valid violations of the rules that
Right,
were
but
on
that
there.
wasn't from
Actually,
Pittsburgh.
can speak to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Brenda and I met with the Boys and Girls Club, who did mention, we did bring up the concern about the violations.
Yeah.
They're well aware of them. They came into a situation where this is a whole new administrative group right now. They knew exactly what we were talking about, and they have gone through all of their buildings and done a ton of further programming and done a ton of work to sort of right the ship with all of their programs in the area. So they knew exactly what we were speaking of right away.
And they're dealing
this
with
is
it.
a new, so like a whole new administrative group that has taken over the Boys and Girls.
You know how new?
What's that?
How new?
Probably at least a year, Brenda, a little over a year.
Okay.
Nicole's been there about a year. They've been working on it.
I'm not sure, that does sound about right, but they are definitely a new leadership team.
Just based on Nicole talking about the scope of the work that was done, it sounds like they've been working on that for about a year to redo sort of handbooks and all the systems and look at everything that needed to be done to bring it all up to speed.
And is there interest on the current staff to stay on staff?
I believe so, because we actually had people reach out to Brenda and myself, and they're going to keep the same salary schedule, which we were pleased about, because that was a concern for us.
Yes.
After school.
Okay. Are there any other questions about the, yes, Brett?
I've got a question and then a comment. I'm gonna start with a question, because I'll probably forget it if I start with a comment.
Okay.
Some folks in the district approached me about this, and just for clarification, is it true or not true that the Boys and Girls Club would not be offering a similar benefits package that employees might get if they were part of the district still?
So the Boys and Girls Club primarily, so most of our people that work actually, I believe all but one, and we no longer have a director at Neshobe, they are mostly our staff that work sort of extra hours and sort of overtime. So they're getting their benefits from sort of their regular jobs, if you will. The Boys and Girls Club has sort of their own administration. Now, could one of our people try to go work for their administration? Sure, and I don't know what that benefit package
Like vacation or sick bank, I mean, I assume there's impacts on those things for employees. Something that might discourage you from wanting to work.
Right, but we didn't, so anybody working LEAP, Brenda, correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody's working at LEAP, or SOAR, there isn't sick leave.
No,
Correct,
it's just a
Brenda?
stipend. It's additional, it's not part of their contract. So they don't get sick time or vacation.
Right, you have like an hourly wage, except
That's
for.
not exactly true. So if people are on a contract for the after-school program, for example, the site coordinators or directors, they do get prorated sick leave. We do not have a sick leave bank. And you are correct, Brett, they cannot offer the same insurance we offer, because you may recall our insurance is dictated by the state arbitration, so they can't offer the exact same insurance we have. It is a 3-hour per day program, so if somebody, and we do have a couple of people who do not work in the day program, if you will, in our school day program, we do have some people who come just for the after school program. They know it's a part-time position and it is not atypical. They would be eligible in a part-time position for us, not on a contract for health insurance benefits either.
Okay, so now to my comments, because I feel like financially this isn't something that we need to do. I think it's a little bit foolish to think that the Boys and Girls Club can come in and run the program and all of a sudden it's not going to be, financially it's going to become a success. Everything that they could do, we could do, right? And I recognize that this is an inconvenience to our administration, and it's a challenge that is facing us right now, and this looks like a solution. But this feels to me like a case of we are creating one more step or one more gap between our community and the services that we're providing to our kids. I don't think we should do this. It's not something we have to do. I would like to explore, especially with the changing thresholds for access to money, right? Isn't it now like 200% of the, or 400% of the poverty level? Is that right? Am I?
Community subsidy?
You can get subsidy up to 400% of the poverty level, I believe. I think.
Yeah, okay. It's a sliding scale, but yes.
Right. I think it's like $178,000 household income, if you're below that number. I could be totally off on that.
Okay.
But anyway, my point is, this isn't something that we need to do. I think we should try to see what the after-school program looks like with access to more subsidies, try to encourage families to do that. I think this would be a mistake. It feels like the same mistake that it happens over and over and over again. I saw it in Pittsburgh with the dump. Somebody comes in, says they can run it so much better than the town, and what happens? Costs go up, they get passed on to families. And if a family can't pay for some reason, do we really want to say your kid can't come? Because that's what the Boys and Girls Club is going to do. I think it's actually a benefit that we are flexible enough that we can work with people and be connected to our community.
You did hear Brenda say 2 weeks ago that it would be unsustainable if we continued doing it like that.
She also said we have a healthy enough fund that it will be several years before it would become unsustainable. I think the fact that we're having this conversation and the access to subsidies has increased, parents are hearing this, and if they value the after-school program, they now realize how important it is to be present, to make sure that they're paying their bills. I think now this is a wake-up call. I don't think we need to do it right now. I realize it would be easier for administration if we did it. I think it's the wrong decision.
We also don't have a director.
Understood.
Okay. Just putting the two pieces out there that are
Well, from what
most
I
important.
understand is, we're already pretty far down the road with transitioning to the Boys and Girls Club. That we've told people that they don't have a position for next year, when we haven't voted on anything yet.
Have we done that, Brenda?
I didn't hear the end of that. You asked if we told people they don't have a position next year?
Right. People are saying that
We have told them that we are investigating a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club and that we are talking to the board about it, and we have given them the timelines of the board meetings.
But you didn't tell anybody specifically that they did not have a job for next year, for after-school services.
We didn't use those words, correct, but we did say that if we go into a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club, we hope and encourage them and would like to see them continue in their employment in our programs.
Okay. So I'm just trying to clear up misinformation, because this is how misinformation starts. No, but do you know what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
Okay,
I'm
so-
oversimplifying it. I admit that.
Okay, well, but that's how I just want to clear up that kind of stuff. It's because that's what happens. Someone hears something like that, and then they tell their friend who tells their friend, and nobody goes back and verifies, and it becomes this big thing. So
It's a tricky piece too, because if we waited until the very end, you haven't given people time to sort of explore options. There's not a great solution to that.
I think the organic relationship between the school and the community is very, very important. It's probably the most important relationship.
Okay. Natalie, I see your hand up.
Is that not something that we could add to the contract, that we would prefer that they hire an existing employee? And then my other comment would be that it's a one-year contract, so if it doesn't work, we can go back to what we were doing before.
What happens to the?
It also has a 60-day termination clause as well.
If for some reason, Fernanda asked about the fund balance, and so the way Brenda explained it last month was that if it costs $10,000 to run it in 1 month and they had gotten $8,000, we would use our fund balance to pay the difference to keep it whole. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Other questions?
If we were to keep it local, are we only looking for a director?
Brenda, that's a question for you. So if we were to keep it local, are we only looking for a director?
If we were to keep it local, what?
If we were to keep it local and not go to the Boys and Girls Club, are we only looking for a director?
We are looking for a director and I believe we might be looking for a sites director. So a couple of other things that the Boys and Girls Club brings to the equation is also billing and invoicing and working with families for DCF subsidies. So I don't know if we have people, I mean, I'm not sure what a director can do. We had a hard time finding a director. We also paid more for a director than they paid for a director. So we can try to advertise for a director again. I don't know what we would do if we can't find one. You know, in addition to a director, there's really not the administrative capacity. I don't know who that would be, whether that would be there are 3 brand new principals in each of our after-school programs. You want the administrator over the programs to be very close and intimate with the programs and the staff.
So what's your pleasure?
I'm not crazy about this idea.
So, all right, I have a question then. If we wanted you to go out and advertise for a director, and I'm not saying that I do, but I'm just asking, and you were to put it on whatever you put it on tomorrow, how much time do we need to get, well, first of all, how much time do we have before we need to tell the Boys and Girls Club that yes, we are going to do this? Do we have until July 1, or do we have to tell them yet tomorrow? And then how much time would it take to get a director and get them up to speed on our own programs? And, you know, I know I'm asking a lot. I want to get the information out there because I'm hearing hemming and hawing here, and I just want to get the right information out.
These were not conversations we had with the Boys and Girls Club, so it's unfair for me to say, you know, whether they would think about, I mean, it is essentially, it feels like June 1st.
I know.
We will be running a summer program that we have organized for 5 weeks this summer at Neshobe. I'm not even sure who would train the new after-school director. I would hope that maybe Nancy Bird, our retired director, would come back and do that, but she never liked to work in the summer anyway, so she was not used to working in the summer and is not even around in the summer. I think it would be unlikely that we would be having a program or a contract with the Boys and Girls Club to start in August. Whether they would be able to or consider or be interested in taking over in January if we delayed that, I don't know. I haven't.
Can I ask one more question? So I hate that, you know, when we say, oh, you know, this happened to me, but I am hemming and hawing because this happened to me. And so my question is, I'm wondering how the principals feel about the release of control, because one of the issues that happens sometimes is that when you have an outside agency coming into your building, they employ different behavior strategies, different language, different permissions of rules that are within the school, and it impacts the daytime way that the school functions because issues pop up. People see kids doing things that are against the rules during the day because they're permitted by the outside agency. There's a discrepancy, and for us it didn't work. So we ended up closing the program, you know, because there was so much, and that's my experience. It wasn't the Boys and Girls Club, it was another larger place that offered after-school care. But how do the principals feel about that release of control and the impact of that into their program? Because that would be a concern to me.
I'd like to remind you that all of the principals are new.
True.
So I don't know how Petra Simon feels.
Yeah.
I don't know how the new OCA principal feels. And Stacy has been thankfully with us since mid-March or mid-February, sorry, Stacy.
January.
But I don't know the answer to that.
So I guess I'm saying that I would do it for a year because this is such a high transition year and we need something for the kids. But I would be really interested in keeping a close tab on how it's impacting the school community and what the, overlap is between school program and after school program and how easily and seamlessly it's moving, and then reevaluate, because it can have a big impact when kids go by different rules at two different places in the same setting. So, I just would like to know that. And sometimes after-school programs are a little looser than we are in school days, and it's okay when it's the staff that know it, but it can create a little bit of conflict. So, I see the circumstances as being really tough right now in finding somebody this late in the game, in being able to coordinate with principals that are new, that haven't even started their contracts. I would say yes for a year, with the caveat that we really evaluate how well it's working way before the renewal of the contract or the MOU. That would be my feeling, based on my experience.
Can I add that the MOU includes monthly meetings with the principals, so it will be evaluated. And I agree with you, Fernanda, and that's why I think we have to have a really good MOU set up to make sure that we have all of this in place. And I would add to the MOU that, perhaps the Boys and Girls Club need to follow the policies that are used in schools, something to that effect, which we have to do at Middlebury College. So maybe adding something like that.
That would be my biggest concern.
All right, so.
Does that address your concerns?
It does. I just feel like we need to just monitor that closely. We have a new superintendent as well, so it's like there's a lot of moving pieces for it not, but it's also a lot of moving pieces to try to bring somebody else that's new. Whereas we got something that has experience, that already has, a system. I think it could work, but I would want to be careful about it.
It's tricky because each of our programs are functioning in different ways.
Right.
Some need a lot of support. Others are functioning like extremely well by themselves, but it's a whole system. So that's what makes it really.
But we no longer do the hiring of the staff that is going to be staffing that program.
Right.
So what I'm hearing is that Fernanda wants to make a motion that we enter into an agreement with the Boys and Girls Club for a term of 1 year with the changes that we've already talked about, adding the indemnity clause and the insurance requirements and monthly meetings with the principals, and maybe Brenda too. Maybe we should be there. No, I'm just kidding. No, we're not. Anyway, and then determining, the problem is that if the program doesn't start till August, when we're budgeting and whatnot, we're starting our budget discussions in October, we wouldn't be giving that program enough time to get up off the ground to see if it's working until, February or March. But, so we'll have to think about how we're going to evaluate that. Anyway.
Clarifying question, that's not coming out of our budget, right?
Right. So it doesn't matter.
Right.
Well, it would matter if it's going to start coming out of our budget.
We have the money.
Well, yeah, that's true. We could take it out of there, but I'm just saying that that it is going to be, we're going to have to make sure we stay on top of it. Because we've got to give it a good 6-month try before we can really say it's not working or not. Okay, so Fernanda, are you making the motion to enter into that agreement with them for a period of 1 year?
Yes.
Is there a second? Boy, you two are just, you guys are awesome. All right, so all of those in favor of the after-school program contract, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody? There's only 1, 2. We got 2, okay. Is that your hand up, Natalie?
Yes.
3.
But I'd say the contract changes.
Yes, right, yes, we already have that, yep, okay. 3, okay, and all those opposed?
Do I
3.
have to vote?
You can do a no, you can just do it, you can say you're
I'll go with that. I understand both sides. I guess I'll go with the one with the contract clauses, give it a shot.
So you're saying yes? All right, so it's 4 to 3. Okay. All right, so we're gonna enter into that for a 1-year program, 1-year period, and see how that goes. Thank you. All right, it is almost 9 o'clock. We are 1 minute away. We still have lots of things on our thing here, and I'm not trying to avoid anything, so please don't think that. But I don't know how much longer you want to keep going.
Let's keep going.
I would suggest we take care of the Calverley contract since it's very similar and it's right on.
And then
think we
adjourn
have
the
to
meeting
talk
and move everything else?
You willing to do that?
Well,
Maybe.
do we have to talk about the letter?
Well, we can do that at our June 4th meeting. We'll also talk about it with BUU. So
Isn't that the joint meeting, though?
Yeah, well, sure, but we all have to, I mean.
Well, have we had,
we need to talk about it.
I guess we need to talk about it for a few minutes then.
I don't want to do it tonight, though. So we will.
Well, can I ask
we will
one
push,
simple question about
We'll push
that?
the joint meeting off with BUU and just have our discussion on June 4th.
Let's have the information meeting that day. Okay.
Well, no, I'm just saying, because I think I don't, well, we are all here. I don't know, I don't care. I'm just asking, so. All right, so we'll keep moving. Fox Forest Summer Program, Yusuf Caverly. Well, I'm not sure, so I believe they pulled together a contract for that, and it should have been in your packet. We do need a motion before we can discuss.
I move that we accept the contract with the
Fox Forest Summer Program? Okay. Is there a second? All right, so Fernanda is seconding that. Discussion. Yep.
All right, so once again, I'm not in favor of this one. And I think it comes back to a relationship between the school system and the community. Families in Pittsford have a special affinity for Caverly. It results in a lot of volunteer hours, a lot of intangibles, right, that you really can't quantify. And I think if anybody was on the board back when it was proposed to close Caverly would know that the community is very passionate about that space. Financially, there's absolutely no benefit to our district, and I would hate to vote in favor of something that in any way jeopardizes that space with all of the materials that are there, with I don't know how to put it into words eloquently, but it's a very special space. It means a lot to the community. I don't see any reason that we should be putting it in jeopardy. I'm again a no on this.
Okay.
How is the space going to be jeopardized?
Yeah.
So there's 3 days from the end of school to when the summer program starts. Where's everything going to go? Who's going to move it? What happens if something gets damaged? The space is designed for 3- and 4-year-olds. Summer program up to 7-year-olds. What does that mean? I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of things that we can't quantify. I mean, the playground is primarily built by donation. The gardens are maintained by donation. There's a lot of community effort that goes into keeping that space what it is. And frankly, I don't know why administration thinks that that's their space. That is the community member space. And
actually, it's the taxpayer space,
right,
to be completely honest.
Yeah, that's what
and
I'm
that's
talking
not
about.
that's not just the town of Pittsford. That's now
Understood.
OVUU. And I will say, I mean, I said it before last meeting, there are students that are gonna be in that program that are from Pittsford.
Understood, and there's students in that program that are not.
Okay, sure.
So if there was and I'll be very clear, if there was some kind of a financial benefit, I would be all for this, but there isn't.
But what would the financial benefit be? I mean, I guess I don't understand, I mean.
We're taking on all the risk. What are you talking about?
But it's just because Barstow is gonna be under construction for a period of weeks. They're not, I don't think the little kids are gonna come in and destroy the building. And if they did, part of this must be insurance as well. They must be insured. They would fix it, we would fix it. I mean, I don't think the place is gonna get put up on fire or anything like that.
I mean, Laura, you can dislike my opinion. That's fine.
I'm just trying to understand your opinion.
My opinion is that I think we as a board and this district have lost a connection with our community. And all of these decisions regarding bringing in a third party for an after-school program or giving away our facilities to another third party for the summer, that is a further disconnect between us and our community. And that's a problem. And it shows up when we go to the polls.
So I'm late to this party because I think last time during this meeting I was putting my granddaughter to sleep.
disagree.
Yeah.
But, okay, wait a minute. Look, Fernanda's talking and then we'll let you in.
So as far as I understand, that program exists in Barstow and Pittsford children are going there. I know of many who are. So, and it's a pretty well-liked program. The parents that I have spoken with like that program quite a bit. So the location of the program shouldn't matter that much. What we're doing is providing really important childcare to families that need it, and they need a setting. And I'm not really sure that it changes anything. Was there something running in that program during the year? It wasn't being used.
During the summer. It's not used during the summer, no.
It's not being used. So I would loan my space in a school to another program to come and serve kids during the summer while that transition is happening, because I feel like that's the service we offer. It's for the parents and it's for the children. I'm not really, I don't have the relationship to Caverly. I don't know, I know it was a very beloved program and I know it was very controversial when things changed.
Nothing's changed, they're still there.
Okay, so, but the discussions were there. So I'm not really sure if this is about the kids and the program or if this is about the history.
I think it's about both, right? So it's about parents that would go there over the summer and help maintain the gardens. It's about families that would walk there during the day so that their kids could utilize the playground when school's not in session. All of these things, there is a direct impact to the community. That space is now no longer available, to exactly your point. And I keep coming back to for what? And I don't want to sound like it's all about the money, but the reality is that there is an impact to the community. No one seems to want to accept that it's real, but it is. And I think as a Pittsford resident, I am not entirely comfortable with the use of Caverly over the summer. That's my stance. I don't think I need to justify it anymore. We walk there almost every night during the summer. And we're not the only ones.
Right? I mean, while it's closed, while the program is not running, you can, right?
Right,
Like
but that's because we're working during the day. That doesn't mean that people aren't going there during the day.
What are the hours it's going to be being used? Just during the day, right? The program's during the day?
So what, do you know the hours that it's run?
Yeah, it's during the day. Is it 8 to 4, Brenda? 8 to 4? 8 to 5?
8 to
And
4.
it starts after school and it ends August 9th. I remember that.
Yes, for some reason I'm trying to find that in my papers and I can't find the agreement. But 8 to 4 sounds right.
And do we know for a fact that the program is against people coming to help with the garden?
No, but I think it creates complications. I mean, if I was running a program, I wouldn't want strangers showing up, even if they are good intentioned.
Community spaces are shared. So I'm having a hard time. I don't question your perspective, I'm just having a hard time. I'm thinking like I just helped to fill out applications for 3 Pittsford children to attend the summer program here. So I do think that sharing of space is something that we do. But that's just, but I don't know the relationship to that building.
Is there any way to get like a rent for it? I know it's just we're all trying to decide on something.
So the rent issue is that they pay, so Fox Forest pays $500 a year to be at Barstow. They're in the school building and they pay $500 a year to be there. And that is because it's in the school building. We own the Barstow owns the building, and they just utilize it. So that was the deal that BUU has with them. What we had suggested last time was that the Fox Forest program pay for any utilities. You know, that they pay the electricity during the summer while they're there. You know, and obviously they know they're probably going to have to fix anything that they were to break. My issue, I think, where my disconnect is with Brett, is that when I think of our kids, it's not just OVUU kids, it's all RNESU kids. And so in the Fox Forest program, there are RNESU kids. They are our kids too. It's kind of just like it kind of reminds me of when I first got on, when this board first unified, and I was from Sudbury, and someone else was from Whiting, and someone else, and we were all like, well, you're not going to do that to my school, and it took us over a year to finally realize that it wasn't about our individual students, but that we were all in this together. And that is where I feel like your disconnect is that it's not just about Lothrop students and what happens at Lothrop, but it should include all students from all districts, in our district, in our SU.
Okay, and this is a private program. I do want to highlight that again, which apparently is already full. So obviously they have a space for summer already.
Yeah.
This was covered last time, but.
Oh, right, I'm sorry, yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Natalie, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Kayla has her hand up.
No. Go ahead.
I've forgotten the reason why they want to move the summer. Can we?
It's because Barstow is having HVAC, the whole HVAC system is being redone, and so they cannot be in the school while that's being done.
Okay, thank you.
And that's the reason.
Did Natalie
Natalie
say?
Natalie started.
Oh, so Natalie, go ahead.
Sorry if I'm a little chippy. I'm sick today. I was homesick and I'm at this meeting, and I just want to say quickly that I think it's being a little petty to say that they can't use the space for 3 months when we have an excellent contract in place that will hold them responsible if they do happen to destroy the place, which I really don't think is going to happen. So I can't think of a really good reason not to offer space if they are going to replace everything and pay for all the fees, especially if we're not using the space. We're a nonprofit educational institution. We're not here to make profit off of people. This is for kids. It's a benefit to children who are in our district. I just can't understand why we can't let them use our space, given that we have a really good contract in place.
Other questions from the board?
There's a hand raised.
She's not on the board, and she's already made her sentiments known, so.
I move that we vote on this.
You want to vote? Okay. All right, so the motion on the table is that we allow the Fox Forest program to use the Caverly site from the period of whatever to August 9th. Motion made by Barbara, seconded by Fernanda. Okay, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed?
I don't have a vote.
1. And are you opposed or
I was going to abstain, but I'll.
abstain? Or you're saying no? Okay.
I'll
good.
say no.
And abstaining?
Yeah.
Okay. So 3, 2, 1. I think that's right. 4, 2, 1. Right?
1, 2,
3?
It was 4. It was 4-2-1.
Did-
Okay.
Did she vote? Did
Yes,
Natalie?
Natalie voted yes. Okay. 4-1. So we will allow that contract to move forward. Okay, Burdett Trust, proposed modifications to settlement agreement.
I have more history.
Just so everybody knows, the proposal that we gave to the Burdett, or to the Pittsford Select Board, which was to leave the voting the way it is currently, which means that if Burdett Fund request came to us, that it would have to be unanimous by all Pittsford members, but 50% of the whole board, and then full 100% agreement of the select board from Pittsford. They have agreed to allow that to continue, with the caveat that if at any point they want to change it, that they can bring the same issue back up if they want to. So that is where we're at. And do we need to make we have to approve that, right?
The Burdett Fund?
Yeah, we have to make that. So that is what we've offered to them. We need to make a motion to approve that so that the lawyers can get together and make that part of the trust.
Accept it?
Yes, Pittsford said that they would allow that. Yep. They just wanted the ability to ask again, if it comes up whenever again that they want something different, that they would have the ability to ask.
So moved.
Okay?
Seconded.
So moved by Kevin, seconded by Fernanda. Any questions? All right. All those in favor of the Burdett Trust proposed modifications, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Are you abstaining, Brett?
No.
Okay. All right. So that one passes as well. Stafford Tech update. That would be you.
I've nothing to report at this time. Stafford runs very well. I can get more details next time, but
Okay. All right. OVUU letter to the State Board of Ed regarding RNESU configuration. So, Brett sent me an email regarding this, and so he asked that we include policy 4.3 and policy 4.5 in here as part of our discussion. So that is why they are part of the discussion.
Do we want to do this in open session, or?
Yeah, there's no reason not to. Nobody's going to get hurt by our discussion about this, so.
So I have a very simple question. Have we had any indication from a legal authority that the resolution passed on February 20th is illegal?
I don't believe we asked anybody.
Say what? I couldn't
So
hear
he's
that.
asking if the motion that was made on February 20th, he wanted to know if there had been anybody in a legal status like Pietro saying that it was illegal because it had not been warned on the budget and was passed or hadn't been warned on the agenda, and the motion was made and passed.
Yes, we did ask, and it was not illegal. They suggested it's not good governance, but it's not illegal.
Okay, in that case, I move to adjourn, to defer this discussion to the later date you suggested and adjourn for the night.
Okay, all right. Is everybody else in favor? All right, all those in favor?
Question, do we need to do some sort of an action on the para-bus driver negotiations? I'm thinking we probably do.
Has not.
I don't think we got that yet.
No, it has not come forward.
Okay.
So, RNES.
Oh, what is the date, by the way, for that next discussion?
June 4th with BUU.
Okay.
Okay, it'll be before our meeting.
Okay.
So I think it starts at 5.
That's not even warned. Melinda's back in the hospital. So
I know she does. I know she is. I know I saw her message. I can't even believe it.
Can I ask you to repeat what we just voted on?
Oh, yeah, so, sorry, Natalie.
I didn't hear it very well.
So, what we did was Kevin asked the question about the OVU letter to the State Board of Ed and asked if the motion and the decision that was made on February 20th was illegal. Kristen had talked to our lawyer, Pietro. Pietro said, no, it wasn't illegal, but it wasn't good governance. And so Kevin asked that we defer the conversation to our next meeting, which is June 4th.
So,
is that at 5 p.m. or 5:30 p.m.?
But that's our joint meeting, right?
It is the joint meeting with them.
I guess maybe I should address the email that I sent to you here, because I don't want to bring that up at a joint meeting,
Okay.
right? Because to me, what this came down to is sort of exactly what Kevin's question is was that a binding vote? Was there a problem with what happened, right? It sounds like the answer is no. So then I think it becomes a conversation of us speaking as one board. I mean, whether or not we agree with the decision, it happened, right? So
Well, you did have 2 members that left early to go to watch a baseball game.
I understand all the circumstances.
Or basketball game at the time.
Right, understood.
Nobody else is responsible for those decisions.
Can I make one comment?
I'm just saying, they weren't here to make the decision too. They
They could have been.
Natalie?
Can I make one comment? I know that you got the legal advice of Pedro, but I also talked to our town manager and some other lawyers who did say that it is not legal. So I think regardless, good governance, whether it's illegal, it's just a good idea to do it again because it was not on any other agenda in times past. And so the public would not have known about it to be there to discuss it. It's just good for public relations in general.
And if we're talking about transparency, and we don't want to be messing up and making mistakes, we definitely don't want to be having things thrown on the agenda that people don't have a warning is going to be on there. That's terribly untransparent.
So are we undoing our last motion, which was to defer this and bring it back so that we can talk about it now?
That's an incredibly dangerous precedent. I guess you're right. I guess what you're saying to your question, yes.
Okay. All right. So then I guess we're rescinding the motion.
The one tonight? not
Yeah.
the one about
Yes.
the-
Right.
No, the one tonight.
The one tonight.
Too close.
Okay, so essentially, everybody was here for that meeting on February 20th, except Paul had left to see a basketball game, and Natalie too, because both of their children were in it. And you were not here either, were you? Okay,
No.
so three of you were not here.
However, we still had quorum.
Oh yeah, I know.
And I want to emphasize again, if people choose to get up and leave during a meeting, that's their decision.
But only if they know what is on the warning.
It was on the agenda.
Added to the agenda at the beginning of the meeting.
It was added to the agenda at the beginning
is-
of the meeting. And I did put it towards the end because should have gone under governance process and I didn't want to put it, So that was my decision.
So that's my other point, that we have governance process on the agenda for that night. It was item Roman numeral 7, just as tonight, this discussion's under the governance process. So the idea that somehow that this is, unethical or people didn't have the chance, blah, 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 blah. We have a wide open discussion of governance process. A relationship with RNSU is clearly a governance process question. It's a valid thing to bring up. We've had the ruling that it's a legally passed motion. I think that's the end of the discussion. Except I want to add that under section 4.5.4, section B, it prohibits, I'm quoting here, members' interactions with the public, the press, or other entities, and they must recognize the inability of any board member to speak for the board except to repeat explicitly stated board decisions. Other entities would include the RNSU Board, the Department of Education, and the Vermont State Board of Education. Section 4.5.7 states that members will support the legitimacy and authority of the final determination on the board on any matter, irrespective of the member's personal opinion on the issue. We've had repeated violations of those rules. Now, I think 4.5.7, personally, I think that it's a bad rule because of the First Amendment, but we have that rule, and we've had repeated complaining about this board decision by multiple board members. We had 2 board members complain about it at the RNSU board meeting 6 days ago. They are violating 4.5.4B and 4.5.7 in our policies by doing so. We are supposed to be speaking with one voice. Just because there was a vote that you're unhappy with, join the club. You're not supposed to be undermining that vote in public or with other entities. Thank you.
I wasn't going to put it that way, but that was kind of why I put it on there, right? Because I feel like it's sort of a two wrongs don't make a right situation, right? Where 4-3 really wasn't adhered to with the original vote, right? And then 4-5 I don't feel was adhered to afterwards. So I think probably the worst thing we could do is to try to re-vote on this, because I think that brings every decision that we make back into question.
This is not a revote. This discussion tonight was to talk about the fact that we need to talk to BUU because that's what the State Board of Ed wants. But I will say that as a member of RNESU, I can speak as an RNESU board member and say anything I want to say about it because it affects RNESU.
No, you can't, Laura. You have
Yes,
to
I
say,
can.
you have to say that the
No,
that
I
the
am a member of
OVU board
RNESU and
voted to approve this, and that's all you have to say about it.
So as
You're
an,
about as much of a legal expert on this as any of the rest of us. So
Well, does
your
4.5.7
interpretation of the
apply or
policy
not?
is the interpretation of the policy. But we're all about interpreting policies, and I disagree with your interpretation. And there we are. Boom.
but again, it comes down to, was it illegal? No, it wasn't illegal. Okay. If that's
one
true.
person's opinion. That's one.
Well,
legal
our
opinion,
lawyer, I
and
mean,
that lead-
So here's the
Someone
thing.
said it differently,
So here's the thing. As far as whether we are right, wrong, or indifferent, the State Board of Ed wants us to determine if we are going to have a different setup, what that setup is. They are not going to do it for you. So that's why they told us, when I went to the State Board of Ed as the RNESU chair, that they advised us to go back and talk to BUU and try to work this out with them. Because they don't want to make the decision for us.
That's not the same as you expressing an opinion that you disagree with the board's decision, which is
We're
what you
drilling
did,
down into
and what Barbara did.
We're drilling down into a sub.
Well, we've heard him do it a million times when we've made a decision
but I
that
mean,
he
he's
doesn't
really-
like,
one thing
and
is
he
he's-
goes out and says it to, I mean, like, what
Yeah,
about the
exactly.
budget? You don't like the budget, and so that's what you tell everybody, we're supposed to be voting as one. So, I don't know about, you can say that.
I mean,
And as an RNESU board member, I can say what I want to say as an RNESU board member. I'm not saying it as an OVUU member at that point. It's a different animal.
In my opinion, Laura, again, not a lawyer, I don't think that you said anything that was out of line at the last RNESU meeting. I think that Barbara did, because she said, I'm not sure it was even a legal vote. That's not something that should have been brought up in an RNESU meeting.
Oh, well.
And I don't want to drag this out. We don't need to have this conversation. It's just we can all be better. We can all be better about adding things to the agenda ahead of time so that this never comes into question again. Because what's lost in this is that we had a vote on an issue, and now the issue is lost.
Well, the issue's not lost. It's still, that's why it's here tonight. And it is to talk about what your position is and what you want out of BUU. But I have to tell you that, and Kevin, I think, can agree to this, that they don't understand. I mean, and I did say this at the RNESU meeting, the BUU and the OVUU relationship started way back with Dr. Mathis when he started putting all of the things that were the same together. So, transportation, special ed, food service, all of those things started with Dr. Mathis, early ed, all of those things that we started to do together as a community, as two districts. I mean, it was a lot more districts than that, but Barstow was part of that. And so we've always had a great relationship. And that has continued even since 2016 when we became one big board under OVUU and BUU stayed the same so that they could keep choice. I'm not sure what, and maybe you can explain this because I still haven't heard a good explanation. I know that we are 85% of the whole compared to BUU's 15%. I get that. We're bigger. I'm not arguing that. We all agree. But when it comes down to it, the 5 things that we talk about at RNESU, transportation, special ed, What am I for? Central office,
Finding a
curriculum.
superintendent.
Curriculum, no, I know, I'm sorry. Curriculum and food service. Those are the 5 things that RNESU talks about. It's the only 5 things that RNESU talks about. 15% of that goes to BUU, the rest of it goes to OVUU, because that's how the services are broken up. So how is so if there's 3 members from BUU and 3 members from OVUU, how is OVUU not being served just because we're bigger? And I understand democracy and 1 for 1 or however you decide to do that, but I just don't know that it makes sense to create tension between our 2 boards to say that OVUU needs more voice, because we haven't done anything at the RNESU level that impacts OVUU terribly. Most of the extra money came to OVUU.
Okay, so first of all, the point about democracy is an extremely valid point. 85% of the people should have more say than 15% of the people. That is a basic American ideal. Secondly, there's no reason why we can't have a wonderful relationship when it comes to food and transportation and so forth. Your assumption is as soon as they lose a majority, or they lose 50% of the say, that somehow those issues are going to become very, very difficult and contentious. Thirdly, there are very different priorities at stake. I'm going to give you 2 examples. One is that millions of dollars in ESSER funds went to the RENSU board. We had no say in how they were spent. We were told by Brooke Olson Farrell a couple of weeks ago that she managed to put $3.5 million of her the Slate Valley money into the Fairhaven Union High School building. We spent $0 on our deteriorating buildings. That was a mistake, and part of the reason for that mistake was because Barstow has no incentive to care about the buildings of Otter Valley, particularly the high school. The other thing that's, I'm going to give third actually. The second thing is that Barstow exists as a board to tuition their kids, which means they have no priority about sending their kids to our high school or spending money on our high school and junior high school. Thirdly, if you want another very immediate and specific reason why we have different interests, is because we've repeatedly talked tonight about how the RNESU budget affects the OVUU decision about our budget. Some of us have said that RNESU didn't cut enough. I've been hearing that from the public quite a bit too. If we don't have majority control over the RNSU board, we can't control that budget. Our taxpayers can't touch it. This board cannot touch it. That's an urgent priority why we need to have a majority. So I've given you 3 reasons why this makes a difference.
Can I say one thing? Okay. So the RNESU board is made up of 6 members, 3 BUU and 3 OVUU, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So 99% of the time, the board chair does not vote. That would be me. So I'm from OVUU. So when we make decisions, the BUU could have a majority vote in that, right? Because it could be 3-2.
Yes.
But if I did not like it, I can vote. I can exercise my right to vote. And therefore, if we're at a standstill, it would go down.
May I ask you a question? Sure. Why are you opposed to this? What harm is being done to our voters or our students if we have a majority on the RNSU board?
Because I just think that being contentious with BUU after years and years of harmony and not affecting our students or anything at that, and we haven't harmed
I just gave you 3 examples, millions of dollars that didn't go to our schools.
We put the money into teachers and to trying to help our kids get the education back that they lost.
RNSU
That's-
didn't have the discussion about the buildings. I mean, that alone tells you what's wrong with the system.
Actually, RNESU did have facilities conversations, which is where the modulars came to both Neshobe and OCA. Barstow saw no
Yeah, at the
infrastructure.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Besides votes, what would they lose if that did happen? Besides this majority say or equal say, what would they actually be losing by not
I
having
mean,
those votes?
nothing other than the fact that they just don't have the 50, it's not 50-50 anymore. So, and I don't, yeah.
I mean, I've been on RNSU for a bunch of years, so, I mean, I concur with what you're saying. It's like, there has been no contention. There's been no blocking. They've not blocked things we wanted to do. They've not they've not seen us as taking too much of the pie. I don't understand your desire, Kevin, to create problems where there are none, but this seems to be the thing. And I don't get it. It's like, we get along with them. Why would we want to not get along with them? It got brought up at the RNSU meeting, and they were clearly uncomfortable. They're made uncomfortable by this suggestion. Why? I don't know. Why? This is why I spoke out of turn, but it's like, I didn't know we were going to be doing this. I wasn't at the meeting and it wasn't warned. So now it's out there as a thing we want as a board. And I'm like, why do we want this? I don't feel like anybody had any time to think about it. Now I'm having to go to RNESU and act like, yeah, that's what we want, is we don't want to be equal 3 and 3 because we don't agree with that. That's a really hard position to take when it's like completely anathema to the existence of the RNESU board. There's nothing wrong being done. You're looking for a problem where there is none. It's not representative democracy because that's not people electing people to that board from the constituency.
It's just the shared services, but go ahead.
When I hear, like, I'm listening to everything, when I hear the money part, how many of those, and they're getting that kind of money, how many of those kids from Barstow actually end up coming here out of Valley?
None.
There are a few. There are a few that
Few,
come here,
right?
yes.
So I can understand the point about the money for in harmony, that kind of thing.
Well, that's their budget, but see as far as where they go, where they tuition, that comes out of their personal budget. That they have to raise that money from their BUU budget. That doesn't come through RNESU.
It's money we're not getting.
Which
I just can't emphasize enough that the RNSU board is not a club. Its purpose isn't for everyone to be in harmony all the time.
Well, no, we're not always in harmony. When we talked about the pre-K
Okay, so
program, we were in
the
harmony.
point about harmony, and again, the people from Barstow and the RNSU board are great people. I have no problem with that. And I see no reason why there cannot be pleasant agreement among many, many, many issues.
You need to,
But when there are cases where our interests clash, the majority should rule. I don't, frankly, don't understand the anti-democratic arguments that I'm hearing from this board. Why don't you want the majority of your constituents, all of our constituents, to have a majority on this board? It baffles me. It's astounding. Barbara just made the argument that King George in Parliament made against the American Revolution.
All right, no. Natalie, go ahead.
I just want to say, Kevin, I may have even voted for this if I had been able to discuss it. Okay, I'm not saying that I disagree with it. What I'm having an issue is how it came to the board for discussion. And I talked to Seth Hawkins, who is a lawyer and deals with public meetings all the time. He gave me some very good advice that I think we should all think about when we want to propose something to put on the budget. And he says there's 2 tests. One, would a reasonable person have expected it to be added to the agenda? Meaning, we've been talking about the budget for the last month, so it's reasonable to bring up something related to the budget. And then 2, is the majority of the board okay with adding it at the last minute and considering it without advance notice? And if you don't get a majority for that second, you don't discuss it at that meeting. And I think that we were kind of robbed of that with what you brought to the board. And like I said, I'm open to discussing this letter, because I do think you have some points. What I don't like is that you didn't propose it in a way that the community could be part of the discussion as well. And again, just want to reiterate those 2 points that Seth told me about, which I think we really need to keep in mind. Would a reasonable person expect it to be on the agenda? And if so, then we should discuss it.
Well, I have almost respect in the world for Seth. I would say that governance process is on our agenda every time. Secondly, the motion to change the agenda got seconded and was supported by a majority in attendance. And thirdly, we've already discussed the appropriateness of this. It's been passed, it's on the table, and we are discussing it now, and we will be discussing it again on the 4th. So the public has had plenty of time to make their position known, and will have plenty of time. And frankly, I hope that as many members of the public as possible from our district show up on the 4th and express a desire that the majority should rule.
So how do we come together on this, right? Because
Well, I'm just going back to when we were 12 different boards and we all had 3 members from all those boards. How was that democratic? When, I mean, Brandon is 5 times the size of Sudbury, and we still have 3 members of our board on the RNESU board. Brandon didn't have a proportionate number then. Is it?
But that was statute then, right? The state
It's still
changed.
statute.
The state obviously changed their position on it.
Well, they made a change that you can ask for a different representation, but, I mean.
So we're asking.
Right, but now they want you to tell how you want it, and they're gonna wanna know BUU's position on it, and RNESU's.
Well, frankly, I think this is an issue between the state board and us.
That's not what the state board said.
Well, I would expect that BUU wouldn't support this. And the whole issue is RNESU, so why would it even matter? I mean,
So we end up in different sides, right? We end up with a different solution, and then what happens?
A different solution.
And honestly, a lot of the arguments you're making why we don't need to do this you could make that for why we could do it, because it really doesn't matter. Like you're saying, we have a great relationship, and we don't really have to discuss that much stuff. Like, really, it feels like we either learn from this and decide whether or not we want to have another vote on it. I think that's a terrible precedent to set, but there's definitely a lot of learning that can happen from what happened here. I don't know about anyone else. I don't feel great about it.
I have an interesting observation, because I'm now reminded of another time where something went to a vote and it hadn't been warned on an agenda. And do you know what was at stake?
Aberlin.
Yes. And would you like to know who brought it back to the agenda and said, this wasn't done right? Me.
And I think
And it saved cavalry. And that is the precedent that we follow, is that it's not right to throw things that are substantive and non-emergent onto an agenda. And I don't care we approved it. It was wrong, and we shouldn't do it. It shouldn't have been a precedent. I would have screamed and hollered if I'd been there. But seriously, saying it's done is not the end of it. It's like, no, we can't go forward with this idea that, oh, I had an idea, I think I'll throw it on the agenda and people will vote with me, and then there you go. It's like, no. That's what happened in Rutland with the gosh darn thing I don't even want to talk about. But yeah, that. It's like, that's not right. It's just not right. It's not respectful. So much of this comes down to like just being respectful. And I definitely heard that, there's so many instances of being disrespectful. And you're right, yeah, I am guilty of it a lot this tonight, especially as I'm getting tired and cranky. But like, there's still the process of getting things on the agenda is the thing I'm talking about respecting, regardless of feelings about each other, which we should also kind of respect. But like, there's this process. There's this way we go about getting things on the agenda so we can talk about them. And we should follow it. We just should, and it didn't. And so, like, we can revisit it. It's not a precedent we set very often. Because like I'm saying, I think this has only happened, my recollection, it's only the one other time, and that was like 6 years ago.
So now where are we? We are
What?
at the place where it's on the agenda for next.
It will be on, it'll be on next,
So
well,
we
so
follow
we
the
have
process.
we have a joint meeting with BUU on the 4th to discuss this matter. So, and realistically, that's what the State Board of Ed wants. They would like to see us come together with a solution. What that solution, because they don't want to just carte blanche do something. And that was the other thing, the letter did not indicate what it wanted.
Right.
You know, what the solution
so-
was.
So we're imperfect and we make mistakes and things happen, right? I think that right now we're in a process and we just need to follow the process through. There is no undoing at this point of that decision. We just need to follow that meeting and see what happens. I mean, I just,
That's
you
right,
know,
'cause as it was stated earlier to Brett, that we need to stop talking about what could have been, what was, or what should have been,
there's a
and
lot,
move
you know, we
forward.
make.
That was
all-
stated earlier, that
we do things.
you gotta stop talking
Now-
about how it
now,
was,
I
how
would
it
like
was
to-
handled.
I would like to learn the fact that I don't appreciate nor want to continue to amend an agenda without previous warning. That for me should be a practice that we, whether legal or illegal, it should be a practice that we serve and that we follow, just because it creates havoc and it creates a lot of running around and trying to figure out who's right and who's wrong and legal standings, and it can totally be avoided. So my guess is we're right now in a process. This is my feeling. We're in a process. We're going to have to follow that process through. There's no undoing at this point.
I second that.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion, so since I've been here, I've noticed there are a lot of scars in this room, personal scars that need to get amended, and they are working on it. I've seen a lot of progress, and there are things being brought to the table in the moment. So maybe we can change how we do things, so if Brett has some agenda he wants to talk about, maybe his agenda for this meeting of the month is first on the list, and then the next person gets his, because sometimes it seems like somebody's agenda is getting pushed back, and then a lot of times we get to the end of the meeting and it's like, we'll do the next meeting. We don't meet enough, I don't feel like, to accomplish a whole lot all the time, and it takes months to get stuff. This is from what I see. So, everybody takes their turn. If they have agenda, so if Kevin has some agenda he wants to get and he's ahead of it, it's addressed at the beginning of our meetings. It doesn't get pushed off at the end. That way he can feel fulfilled with what he's wanting to talk about. And then, maybe Barbara's the next person in line for the next meeting, where we're heard up front and we don't have to wait, and hopefully we get to talk about it. Does that make sense? Make no sense. Yeah. I'm just trying to think of a healthy way so people can be heard and be felt, I guess.
There are times where you need to add something to an agenda. That's why you can do it. I mean, it's not
Sure.
good practice, but there are things that come up.
And they get voted on,
Policy reflected that, though. I mean, it should be in our policy to include those types of emergencies.
Sure,
I
but
think you, just as a school board who has the responsibility to respond to emergent issues, you would never want to sort of cut yourself off at the knees and take away your legal option of adding a topic to the agenda that was not warned to be able to respond to it. And as long as the majority of folks agree to put it on the agenda, good governance or not, it is legally binding. Your only option at this point, in my opinion, is to either call a special meeting that you warn to reverse your vote, right? Call the question again, or persist with the upcoming meeting with BUU because the state board's already received the letter. The state board's already acted on it. So sort of reversing it at this point would be a moot point. So let it happen with BUU, have the conversation, and then sort of decide as a group what the next step is, because in the absence of a next step, the State Board of Ed will do nothing, because the letter just sort of says, here's our complaints, but not, here's what we propose to move forward.
So if it's going forward, it's almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go home.
There's a vote.
Take any action? Do we just?
Huh?
There's no action to be taken.
There isn't any action to be taken.
What else have we got left to talk about?
Well, I would propose a motion, I think we'll do it after the next meeting, to change the numbers, that we address the state board, say these are the numbers we want the RNSU board to be.
What numbers make you happy, Kevin?
Well, one that would make me happy would be 5-1. But if it's going to remain a 6-member board, 4 to 2 is, it's not proportional to population, but it's still a majority for the majority.
Proportional to the population.
Anyway, all right. I'm taking the,
We adjourn?
yes.
I move we adjourn.
Yep. All right. 10 o'clock,
Go get a George the Third.
or 9:48, excuse me.